When Michael Jordan's private phone rang at 11:47 p.m., the screen showed something impossible. No phone number, no caller ID, just the word unknown where numbers should be. Only 7 people in the world had this number: his wife, his kids, his closest brother, his lawyer. That's it. This phone was supposed to be completely secure. No one else could call it. Ever. But it was ringing. Michael stared at the phone in his dark penthouse. He was alone. Everyone else was asleep. And now, this impossible call was lighting up his most private phone. He almost didn't answer. He should have just let it ring. But something made him pick it up. "Hello?" Michael said carefully. There was static. Then silence. Then breathing. Scared, quick breathing. Then a child's voice whispered through the phone. "Mr. Jordan, please don't hang up. You're the only one who can help me." Michael's heart started pounding. This was a kid, a young boy, maybe 12 years old, and he sounded terrified. "Who is this?" Michael demanded. "How did you get this number?" "Please," the boy begged. "I know I'm not supposed to have your number, but you're the only one who will believe me. They said you'd understand because of what happened in 1993. That year hit Michael like a punch to the stomach. 1993 was the year his father was murdered, the worst year of his entire life. How did this child know about that? "What did you say?" Michael asked, his voice shaking. "I'm so sorry to bring that up," the boy whispered. "But I didn't know how else to make you listen. I didn't know how else to make you believe this is real." Michael's mind was racing. Was this a prank? A scam? How was this call even possible? Before he could ask anything else, the boy spoke again, faster now, more desperate. "My name is—" The line went dead. Just like that, the call ended. When Michael looked at his phone, there was no record of any call. Nothing in his call history. No number. No timestamp. It was like the call never happened. But Michael had heard it. He'd heard that terrified voice. He'd heard a child begging for help. And he had no idea who it was or how to find him. 3 days passed. 3 long days where Michael questioned if he'd imagined the whole thing. But he couldn't shake that voice. That fear. Then, at exactly 11:47 p.m. on the 4th night, his phone rang again. The same impossible display. Unknown. Michael grabbed the phone immediately. "Hello, who is this?" "Mr. Jordan." The same boy's voice, but more urgent now. More scared. "Thank God you answered. I wasn't sure you would call back. I wasn't sure if you believed me." "Son, you need to tell me who you are and what's happening right now." The boy took a shaky breath. "My name is Isaiah Bennett. I'm 12 years old. I'm in room 14 at Riverside Children's Home in North Carolina. Something terrible is happening here and no one will believe us. The police won't listen. Social workers don't care. We're just foster kids. Nobody cares about foster kids." Michael grabbed a pen and started writing. Isaiah Bennett. Riverside Children's Home. North Carolina. "What's happening, Isaiah? Tell me everything." "There are 7 of us who know the truth. 7 of us who've figured out what Mrs. Carmichael is really doing. She's the director. She looks nice. The building looks nice. Everything looks perfect. But it's not." Isaiah's voice dropped to a terrified whisper. "Kids disappear from here, Mr. Jordan. 8 kids in the last 3 years. The staff says they got adopted or transferred. But that's a lie. We hear things. We see things. And now Mrs. Carmichael is planning to move us. Tomorrow night. At midnight. The 7 of us who know too much." Michael's blood ran cold. "Move you where?" "I don't know. But the kids who left before never came back. They just vanished. And if we get moved tomorrow night, we'll vanish too." The call started breaking up. Static filled the line. "Isaiah!" Michael shouted. "Isaiah, are you there?" Through the static, he heard Isaiah's final words. "They know you came. They're moving us tomorrow night. Please. There are 7 of us. We can't—" The line went dead again. But this time, Michael had a name. A location. And less than 24 hours before 7 children were supposed to disappear forever. What Michael did next would save 7 lives, expose a massive crime network, and change his family forever. But it would also put him in danger. It would cost him his privacy, and it would test everything he believed about himself. The question was simple. Would he answer the call? Would he risk everything to save 7 children he'd never met? Or would he protect himself and let them disappear into the night? Watch this entire video to find out what happened when Michael Jordan decided to answer that impossible phone call. To discover the shocking truth about what was really happening at Riverside Children's Home. To learn how a 12-year-old boy managed to make an untraceable call to one of the most famous men in the world. And to see how one moment of courage changed 13 lives forever. This is the incredible true story of the midnight call that changed everything. Michael Jordan sat alone in his Chicago penthouse, staring at the city lights below. The clock on the wall read 11:43 p.m. Sleep wouldn't come tonight. It hadn't come easily in weeks. He reached for the remote and clicked on the television. Old game footage flickered to life. There he was, younger, flying through the air in his Bulls uniform. The crowd roared. The ball swished through the net. A different lifetime. Michael watched his younger self celebrate, surrounded by teammates. Back then, everything felt possible. Back then, the hardest decisions were about basketball plays and championship rings. Now, at this quiet hour, the penthouse felt too big. Too empty. His family was asleep in other rooms, but he felt alone with his thoughts. He picked up his phone from the coffee table, the private one. Only 7 people in the world had this number. His wife, his children, his closest brother, his lawyer. That was it. No business contacts, no old teammates, no reporters. This phone represented safety, privacy, control over who could reach him in his most private moments. Michael set it back down and rubbed his eyes. Maybe he should try to sleep. He clicked off the television and stood up, stretching his long frame. That's when the phone rang. The sound cut through the silence like a knife. Michael jumped, his heart hammered in his chest. Who would call at 11:47 p.m.? He grabbed the phone and looked at the screen. Unknown. Not a phone number, not even zeros or dashes. Just the word unknown in gray letters where the caller information should be. Michael stared at it. This phone didn't receive calls from unknown numbers. It couldn't. The technology specifically blocked them. He'd paid good money to make sure of that. The phone kept ringing. His thumb hovered over the decline button. This had to be some kind of mistake. A glitch. Maybe someone had somehow gotten the number and was trying their luck. But something stopped him from hanging up. Some instinct, some feeling he couldn't name. Against every logical thought in his head, Michael answered. Hello? Static crackled on the other end. Then silence. Then breathing. Soft. Quick. Frightened. Hello, Michael said again, his voice sharper. Who is this? More silence. Then a voice, a child's voice, trembling, barely above a whisper. Mr. Jordan? Michael's breath caught. The voice was young, very young. A boy, maybe 12 years old. Who is this? Michael demanded. How did you get this number? Please don't hang up. The words came out in a rush, desperate. Please. I know I'm not supposed to have this number. I know you don't know me, but you're the only one who can help me. Michael's mind raced. This was impossible. Children didn't have access to this phone number. No one did. He should hang up right now. This could be anything. A prank, a scam, someone recording him for a viral video. But the fear in that voice sounded real. Too real. Son, I don't know how you got this number, but you need to tell me who you are and how you… They said you'd understand, the boy interrupted. His voice cracked with emotion. They said you'd understand because of what happened in 1993. Michael froze. The year slammed into him like a physical blow. The year everything changed. The year he lost his father. The year James Jordan was murdered in a random act of violence that shattered Michael's world. His hand tightened on the phone. What did you say? I'm sorry, the boy whispered. I'm so sorry to bring that up. I know it must hurt. But I didn't know how else to make you listen. I didn't know how else to make you believe that this is real. Michael's legs felt weak. He sat back down on the couch, his free hand gripping the armrest. "Who are you? Who told you about 1993? "My name is..." The line went dead. Not slowly, not with a goodbye. Just dead. 1 second, the frightened voice. The next, nothing but silence. "Hello," Michael said into the phone. "Hello. Are you there?" Nothing. He pulled the phone away from his ear and looked at the screen. The call had ended. The call history showed nothing. No record of an incoming call, no timestamp, no number. It was as if the call had never happened. Michael's heart pounded. He stood up and paced across the room. His mind spun with questions. How did a child get his private number? How did he know about 1993? Why did he sound so terrified? And most importantly, was it real? Michael had been famous long enough to know that people tried everything to get his attention. Elaborate schemes, fake emergencies, sob stories designed to tug at his heartstrings and open his wallet. But this felt different. The fear in that voice. The specific mention of 1993, the way the call appeared and disappeared like a ghost. Michael walked to the window and pressed his forehead against the cool glass. Chicago spread out below him, millions of people in their homes, living their lives. Somewhere out there, maybe, a scared child sat with a phone, hoping against hope that Michael Jordan would believe him. Or maybe it was nothing. A cruel prank? A hacker showing off? A random glitch in the universe? Michael looked at his phone again. Still nothing in the call history. He navigated to his security settings. Everything was active. Everything was locked down. According to the technology, no call had come through. But he had heard it. He had heard that voice. "You're the only one who can help me." The words echoed in Michael's mind. How many times had he heard similar words? Thousands. Tens of thousands. Everyone wanted something from Michael Jordan. Everyone had a problem only he could solve. He'd learned to tune it out, to build walls, to protect himself and his family from the endless demands of a world that saw him as a solution machine instead of a human being. But this voice, this child. Michael set the phone down and sat in the darkness of his penthouse. The clock now read 11:52 p.m. 5 minutes had passed since the call. Or had it? Maybe it had been longer, maybe shorter. Time felt strange. He thought about his own children, safe in their beds down the hall. He thought about his father, gone for so many years but never forgotten. He thought about all the times someone had needed help and he'd turned away because he couldn't save everyone. But what if this time was different? What if this one child, with his impossible phone call and his mention of the worst year of Michael's life, really needed him? Michael picked up his phone again. He opened his contacts and scrolled to Marcus Webb. Marcus was a former FBI agent, now working in private security. More importantly, Marcus was a friend. Someone Michael trusted. His finger hovered over the call button. It was almost midnight, but Marcus would answer. Marcus always answered when Michael called. Michael was about to press the button when he stopped himself. What would he even say? "Hey Marcus, I got a weird phone call that doesn't exist in my call history from a kid who somehow knows about my father's death." Marcus would think he was losing his mind. Maybe he was. Michael set the phone down again. He sat in the quiet darkness, listening to the sound of his own breathing, and waited. For what, he didn't know. But somewhere deep in his gut, he knew this wasn't over. The call hadn't felt like an ending. It had felt like a beginning. And Michael Jordan, who had built his entire life on trusting his instincts in crucial moments, couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The clock ticked toward midnight. The city lights twinkled. And Michael sat alone with a phone that had received a call that never happened, from a child who might not exist, about a year that still haunted his dreams. He didn't sleep that night. He sat in the darkness, waiting for something he couldn't name, and wondering if tomorrow he would convince himself it had all been his imagination. But deep down, he knew better. That voice had been real. That fear had been real. And somewhere out there, a child was waiting to see if Michael Jordan was the hero he'd hoped for, or just another person who would hang up and forget. The phone sat silent on the table, dark and still. But Michael kept watching it, just in case. 3 nights passed. 3 long, strange nights where Michael Jordan questioned his own sanity. During the day, he went through his normal routine. Meetings with his business team, calls about his basketball franchise, dinner with his family. Everything appeared normal on the surface. But inside, his mind kept returning to that voice. That impossible call. He'd checked his phone 100 times. Still nothing in the call history. He'd even had his tech team examine the device remotely, telling them he was concerned about security. They found nothing unusual. No breaches, no suspicious activity. The phone was completely secure. Michael almost convinced himself he'd imagined it. Almost. But every night at 11:47 p.m., he found himself sitting in the same spot on his couch, phone in hand, watching the screen. Waiting. Night 1. Nothing. Night 2. Nothing. By night 3, Michael felt foolish. He was sitting in the dark like a teenager waiting for a crush to text back. This was ridiculous. He was Michael Jordan. He had better things to do than wait for phantom phone calls from mysterious children. His wife had noticed his odd behavior. "Are you okay?" she'd asked that morning. "You seem distracted." "Just thinking about some business stuff," he'd lied. He couldn't tell her about the call. She'd worry. Or worse, she'd think he was cracking under the pressure of his various responsibilities. On the 4th night, Michael decided he wouldn't wait up. He'd go to bed at a normal hour like a normal person. He'd let this strange obsession go. He turned off the lights in the living room at 11:30 p.m. and headed toward the bedroom. But something made him stop. Some feeling. The same instinct that had made him answer the first call. Michael checked his watch. 11:43 p.m. 4 minutes until the original call time. "This is crazy," he muttered to himself. But his feet carried him back to the couch anyway. He sat down in the darkness and placed his phone on the coffee table. He stared at it. The screen stayed dark. 11:44 p.m. Michael's palms began to sweat. He wiped them on his pants. Why was he nervous? Nothing was going to happen. The call had been a one-time glitch, a strange coincidence, his mind playing tricks. 11:45 p.m. Michael's heart started beating faster. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, watching the phone like it was a bomb about to explode. 11:46 p.m. Any second now. Or not. Probably not. Almost definitely not. 11:47 p.m. The phone rang. Michael jumped so hard he nearly knocked it off the table. His hands shook as he grabbed it. The screen showed the same impossible display. Unknown. No hesitation this time. Michael answered immediately. "Hello, who is this?" "Mr. Jordan." The same voice, the same frightened boy, but this time he sounded more desperate, more urgent. "Thank God. I wasn't sure if you'd answer again. I wasn't sure if you believed me." Michael's mouth went dry. This was real. This was actually happening. "Son, you need to slow down and tell me who you are. Tell me what's happening." "I don't have much time." The words tumbled out fast, tripping over each other. "They monitor everything here. I've only figured out how to make these calls at this exact time. There's a gap in their system. Just a few minutes. That's all I get." "Who monitors everything? Where are you?" "My name is Isaiah Bennett. I'm 12 years old." The boy took a shaky breath. "I'm in room 14, at Riverside Children's Home in North Carolina." Michael grabbed a pen from the side table and scribbled on a magazine. Isaiah Bennett, Riverside Children's Home, North Carolina. "Okay, Isaiah, I've got that information. Now tell me what's wrong. Why are you calling me?" "Something terrible is happening here, Mr. Jordan. I tried calling the police 3 times, but they don't believe us. They call the home to check, and Mrs. Carmichael, she's the director, she tells them we're troubled kids who make up stories. After I called the last time, Isaiah's voice broke. "She said if I caused more problems, I'd disappear like the others." Michael's blood ran cold. "Like the others? What others?" "Kids who were here and then weren't. 8 of them in the last 3 years. The staff says they got adopted or transferred, but that's not true. We hear things. We see things. Something bad is happening. And no one on the outside believes us because we're just foster kids. Nobody cares about foster kids. I care, Michael said, surprised by the force in his own voice. Isaiah, I'm listening. I believe you. But I need to understand, why call me? Why not your social worker? Or, I tried everyone. Isaiah's voice cracked with frustration. Don't you think I tried? Social workers are overworked. They have too many kids to watch. Police think we're making it up. Teachers think we're looking for attention. We're invisible, Mr. Jordan. That's what Mrs. Carmichael counts on. We're invisible? Michael stood up and paced across the room, phone pressed to his ear. But why me specifically? How did you even get this number? Isaiah was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. I read about you. Everything I could find? I read about how you grew up. How your dad worked 3 jobs. How you got cut from your high school team but didn't give up. How you became the greatest basketball player ever. Not because it was easy, but because you refused to quit. Michael felt something tighten in his chest. And I read about 1993, Isaiah continued. About your father. About how you lost him and how it broke your heart, but you still came back. You still kept fighting. You still kept going. I figured if anyone would understand what it's like to be scared and alone, if anyone would know what it means to lose everything, it would be you. Michael sat back down heavily. The mention of his father still hurt after all these years. But hearing it from this frightened child, hearing how his own pain had somehow given this boy hope, created a strange connection he couldn't explain. The phone number, Michael said. This is my private line. How did you get it? The library has computers. I taught myself about phone systems, about encryption and routing. It took me 3 months to figure out how to mask my call, to make it untraceable so Mrs. Carmichael couldn't track it. I found your number in a leaked database from 2 years ago. I know I shouldn't have it. I know this is probably illegal, but I was desperate. Michael's mind reeled. This 12-year-old had taught himself advanced phone hacking to make an untraceable call? That's incredibly smart, Isaiah. My mom was a nurse. She always said I was smart. She died 3 years ago, COVID-19. After that, I went into the system. Isaiah's voice grew thick with emotion. I've been in 5 different homes since then. Riverside is the worst, but it's also the sneakiest. Everything looks good on paper. That's what makes it so hard to prove. Michael wrote more notes. Mother died 2020. COVID. Smart kid. Knows tech. Isaiah, I need you to tell me exactly what's happening at Riverside. What have you seen? I can't. Not now. I'm almost out of time. The system gap closes at 11:52. If I stay on longer, they'll detect the call. Panic crept into Isaiah's voice. But please, Mr. Jordan, you have to believe me. There are 7 of us who know the truth. 7 of us who are in danger. We need someone who the world will actually listen to. Someone who can't be ignored or dismissed. 7 children? Michael's hand clenched around the pen. Give me their names. Marcus Williams, age 7. Keisha Thompson, 9. Emma and Evan Martinez, they're twins, 11. Diego Santos, 10. Aisha Freeman, 12. And me. We're the ones who figured out what's really going on. We're the ones Mrs. Carmichael is planning to move. Move? Move where? I don't know exactly, but I heard her on the phone yesterday. She was talking about relocating the problematic ones before the state inspection next month. Mr. Jordan, if we get moved, we'll disappear, just like the others. Please, you have to… Static crackled over the line. Isaiah? Michael stood up. Isaiah, are you there? More static. Then Isaiah's voice, distant and breaking up. They know you came. They're moving us. Tomorrow night. Please, there are 7 of us. We can't… The line went dead. Isaiah! Michael shouted into the phone. Isaiah! Nothing, just empty silence. Michael looked at the screen. Call ended. No record. Just like before. But this time, Michael had information. Real information. A name, a location, other children, a timeline. Tomorrow night. Michael's decision crystallized in that moment. He wasn't going to sit around questioning whether this was real. He wasn't going to wait for another mysterious call. A child had reached out to him across impossible distances, had trusted him with something precious. The truth and the hope that someone would finally listen. Michael scrolled through his contacts and found Marcus Webb. He pressed call. The phone rang twice. "Michael?" Marcus's voice was groggy. "It's midnight, man. What's wrong?" "I need you to dig into something for me. Quietly. I need it done fast, and I need it done right." The sleep cleared from Marcus's voice instantly. He'd worked with Michael long enough to know when he was serious. "What are we looking at?" "A children's home in North Carolina. Riverside Children's Home. I need to know everything. Financial records, staff backgrounds, any complaints or investigations, and I need you to look for missing children. Kids who were there and then vanished." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Michael, what's this about?" "I'll explain when I see you. Can you get me information by tomorrow morning?" "Tomorrow morning, that's pushing it, but yeah, I can make some calls. Call in some favors. But you're going to owe me a really good explanation. You'll get one, I promise." Michael paused. "Marcus, if what I think is happening is actually happening, we're going to need more than just information. We're going to need a plan, and we're going to need to move fast. You're scaring me a little bit here." "Good," Michael said. "I'm scared too. I'll be at your office at 7 a.m. Michael hung up and stared at his notes. 7 names. 7 children who'd somehow seen through whatever was happening at Riverside. 7 kids who were about to be moved tomorrow night. He had less than 24 hours. Michael looked out at the Chicago skyline. Somewhere in North Carolina, a 12-year-old boy who'd taught himself phone hacking was probably terrified right now, probably wondering if his desperate gamble had paid off. Probably lying awake, hoping that the man he'd called would actually show up. Michael thought about his own children, safe in their beds. He thought about what his father would do in this situation. James Jordan had always helped people, even when it cost him, even when it was inconvenient. Especially then. "I'm coming, Isaiah," Michael said quietly to the empty room. "I don't know exactly what's happening yet, but I'm coming. You reached out to the right person." He spent the rest of the night making calls, taking notes, and planning. Sleep could wait. Right now, 7 children needed him to be what Isaiah believed he was. Someone who didn't quit. Someone who stood up when it mattered. Someone who understood what it meant to lose everything and still choose to fight. By the time the sun rose over Chicago, Michael Jordan had transformed from a skeptical celebrity receiving strange calls into something else entirely. A man on a mission. And nothing was going to stop him from reaching those kids in time. Michael's private jet touched down in North Carolina at 9:47 a.m. He'd barely slept, running on coffee and pure determination. Marcus Webb sat across from him, laptop open, his face grim. Marcus was a solid man in his 50s, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He'd spent 20 years with the FBI before retiring to private security work. "Okay," Marcus said, turning his screen toward Michael. "You're not going to like what I found." Michael leaned forward. "Tell me." "Riverside Children's Home has been operating for 12 years. Clean inspections, good reviews. Mrs. Helen Carmichael has run it for the last 8 years. No criminal record. Looks perfect on paper. But," Michael prompted, "but when you dig deeper, patterns emerge." Marcus pulled up a spreadsheet. In the last 3 years, 8 children have left Riverside under unusual circumstances. The official records say they were transferred to other facilities or adopted through private agencies. And unofficially, I can't find any trace of them after they left. No school enrollments, no medical records, no social media presence for the older ones. It's like they vanished into thin air. Marcus met Michael's eyes. That's not normal. Even in the messy foster system, there are digital footprints. These kids have none. Michael's jaw tightened. Isaiah had been telling the truth. "There's more," Marcus continued. "All 8 children had something in common. They were around 12 years old, all orphans with no living relatives, no one to ask questions if they disappeared." "Someone's choosing specific targets," Michael said quietly. "That's what it looks like. And here's the thing that really bothers me." Marcus pulled up another document. Riverside receives significant private funding, more than similar facilities. The money comes through a foundation called New Beginnings Initiative. When I tried to trace that foundation's board members, I hit walls. shell companies. Offshore accounts? These people know how to hide. Michael stood up and paced the small cabin. We need to get those kids out of there. Today. I agree, but we need to be smart about this. Marcus closed his laptop. If we go in loud, making accusations without proof, Carmichael will lawyer up. The kids could get moved before we can stop it. We need evidence. Then we get evidence. Michael grabbed his jacket. I'm going to Riverside. Today. Right now. Michael, you can't just watch me. Michael's voice was steel. I'm going to walk in there as Michael Jordan, interested donor. I'm going to ask for a tour. I'm going to meet these kids. And I'm going to figure out what's really happening. Marcus stood up too. Okay, but you don't go alone. I'm coming with you, and we're going to have a backup plan. 2 hours later, Michael stood in front of Riverside Children's Home. The building looked pleasant enough. A 2-story structure painted cheerful yellow, a playground with swings and slides, a basketball hoop attached to the side of a small gym building. Everything about it screamed normal, safe, welcoming. But Michael knew better. Evil didn't always look like darkness. Sometimes it wore a smile and hid behind fresh paint. He walked through the front door with Marcus beside him. A receptionist looked up from her desk, and her eyes went wide. Oh my goodness. Are you Michael Jordan? Michael smiled his public smile, the one he'd perfected over decades. I am. I'm here to see Mrs. Carmichael. Is she available? The receptionist fumbled for her phone. Yes, of course. Let me... Just one moment. Within 60 seconds, a woman appeared from a side office. She was in her 50s, with perfectly styled brown hair and a navy blue suit. Her smile was wide and practiced. Mr. Jordan, this is such an unexpected honor. She extended her hand. I'm Helen Carmichael, the director of Riverside. Please, what brings you to our humble facility? Michael shook her hand, studying her face. She looked completely normal. Friendly, professional. Nothing about her screamed villain, but he'd learned a long time ago that you couldn't judge people by their appearance. I'm exploring philanthropic opportunities, Michael said smoothly. My foundation is looking to partner with quality children's homes. Riverside came highly recommended. It was a lie, but a plausible one. Michael's charitable work was well known. Mrs. Carmichael's eyes lit up. How wonderful! We would be honored to be considered. Please, let me give you a tour. You can see everything we do here. She led them through the facility, talking constantly. The building was clean. The common areas were nicely decorated. They passed several children, all of whom looked healthy and reasonably happy. We have 32 children currently, Mrs. Carmichael explained, ages 5 to 16. We focus on creating a home environment, not an institution. Education, therapy, life skills, we provide comprehensive support. Michael nodded, playing along. But his eyes were searching every room, every hallway, looking for Isaiah. Looking for the 7 children who knew the truth. They reached the dining hall. About 15 kids were eating lunch. Michael scanned their faces. There, at a corner table, a thin African-American boy with intelligent eyes. He was sitting with 6 other children, different ages, different races. But something about how they sat together, close and protective, caught Michael's attention. The boy looked up. His eyes met Michael's. It was like an electric shock. Michael knew instantly. This was Isaiah. The boy's eyes widened. His mouth opened slightly. For just a second, pure hope flashed across his face. Then he looked down quickly, back at his food. But Michael had seen it. The recognition. The desperate hope. The fear. Mrs. Carmichael, Michael said, keeping his voice casual. Could I speak with some of the children? I'd love to hear directly from them about their experience here. Mrs. Carmichael's smile flickered for just a fraction of a second. Of course, though I should mention, some of our children are shy. They're not used to celebrity visitors. I understand. I'll be gentle. Michael walked toward Isaiah's table. Mrs. Carmichael followed, her heels clicking on the floor. Michael pulled out a chair and sat down. The 7 children stared at him with wide eyes. Hey there, Michael said warmly. Mind if I join you for a minute? A little boy, Marcus, if Michael's memory was correct, nodded enthusiastically. "You're Michael Jordan. You're the best basketball player ever." Michael smiled. "I appreciate that. What's your name?" "Marcus. Marcus Williams. I'm 7. "Nice to meet you, Marcus." Michael's eyes moved around the table. "And who are your friends?" A girl with braids spoke up. "I'm Keisha." She looked about 9. "Diego," said a boy with olive skin, looking nervous. "I'm Emma." "And this is my brother Evan," said one of 2 kids who looked identical. "Aisha," said a 12-year-old girl with a guarded expression. Finally, Michael looked at Isaiah. The boy was gripping his fork so tightly his knuckles were white. "And you?" Michael asked gently. "Isaiah," the boy whispered. "Isaiah Bennett." Their eyes locked. Michael saw everything in that moment. The fear, the hope, the silent plea. "It's nice to meet all of you," Michael said. He wanted desperately to say more, to tell Isaiah he'd come, that he believed him, that everything would be okay. But Mrs. Carmichael stood right behind him. "Isaiah is one of our more challenging cases," Mrs. Carmichael said, her hand landing on Isaiah's shoulder. The boy flinched slightly. "He's very intelligent but tends toward fantasy, makes up elaborate stories. We're working with therapists to help him separate reality from imagination." Michael's blood boiled, but he kept his expression neutral. "Is that right?" "Oh yes, just last week he claimed he'd hacked into the Pentagon's computer system." Mrs. Carmichael laughed. "Such an imagination. Of course, we had to explain that such things aren't possible, especially for a child with limited computer access." Isaiah stared at his plate, his jaw clenched. Michael understood the message. Mrs. Carmichael was establishing a narrative. If Isaiah tried to tell Michael anything, she'd already painted him as a liar, a troubled kid who made things up. It was a smart move. And it told Michael everything he needed to know. She was guilty, she knew Isaiah had reached out somehow, and she was covering her tracks. "Well," Michael said, standing up, "I think imagination is a wonderful thing. Some of the greatest people in history were told they were just making things up." Isaiah's eyes flicked up to meet his again. Michael gave him the smallest nod. "I see you. I believe you." "Hold on." Mrs. Carmichael cleared her throat. "Shall we continue the tour?" "Actually," Michael said, "I'd love to see more of the facilities. The gymnasium, the sleeping areas. I want to get a complete picture." "Of course, right this way." As they walked away, Michael glanced back. Isaiah was watching him, and for just a second the boy's hand moved. He made a small gesture, pointing downward. Downward. A basement? Something below? Michael filed the information away and followed Mrs. Carmichael through the rest of the building. She showed him classrooms, bedrooms, therapy rooms. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. After 30 minutes, they returned to the main office. Mrs. Carmichael sat behind her desk, still smiling. "So, Mr. Jordan, what do you think? Would Riverside be a good fit for your foundation?" Michael pretended to consider it. "I'm impressed with what I've seen. I'd like to move forward. In fact, I'd like to have my team come here in 2 days to begin the evaluation process." 2 days. Not tomorrow night when the kids were supposed to be moved. 2 days to give Mrs. Carmichael a false sense of security. "That would be wonderful," Mrs. Carmichael clasped her hands together. "We're so honored." "There is one thing," Michael added. "I noticed that boy, Isaiah. You said he was challenging?" Mrs. Carmichael's smile tightened slightly. "Yes, why do you ask?" "I'm interested in success stories, kids who overcome challenges. If Riverside is doing good work, I'd expect to see progress even with difficult cases." Michael leaned forward. "I'd like to include Isaiah in the evaluation. Have my child psychology expert interview him. If you can show positive results with a kid like that, it would be very compelling for our board." He watched Mrs. Carmichael's face carefully. For just a moment, something cold flickered in her eyes. He's actually scheduled for transfer. Tomorrow, in fact. To a facility better equipped for his specific needs." "Tomorrow?" Michael raised his eyebrows. That seems sudden. It's been in the works for a while. These things happen quickly sometimes in our system. I see. Michael stood up. Well, perhaps we could delay that transfer? Just for a few days? If my foundation is going to invest significantly, I'd really like to see your work with all types of children. Mrs. Carmichael stood too. Her smile was still in place, but it no longer reached her eyes. I'm afraid the transfer is already approved. We can't change it now. Bureaucracy, you know. Of course, Michael extended his hand. Thank you for your time, Mrs. Carmichael. My team will be in touch. They shook hands. Hers was cold. Outside, walking to the car, Marcus spoke quietly. She's moving those kids tonight. You know that, right? I know. Michael climbed into the passenger seat. We just accelerated her timeline. She knows I met Isaiah. She knows I asked questions. She's going to move fast. So what's the plan? Michael pulled out his phone. We need more people. We need legal backup. And we need to move faster than she does. Michael, if we're wrong about this, we're not wrong. Michael thought of Isaiah's eyes. The silent terror when Mrs. Carmichael touched his shoulder. The way all 7 children sat together, united against something. That woman is guilty. And those kids are in danger. Tonight. Marcus nodded slowly. Okay, then we don't wait. We go back. Tonight. But we do it right. We bring authorities we can trust. We get those kids out legally. Can you arrange that? I've got contacts. Give me a few hours. Marcus started the car. But Michael, this is going to get messy. Once we do this, there's no going back. Your name will be all over this. The media will be everywhere. Michael thought about it for exactly 2 seconds. I don't care. 7 kids are more important than my privacy. As they drove away from Riverside, Michael looked back at the cheerful yellow building. Somewhere inside, Isaiah and 6 other children were probably terrified, waiting to see if the famous basketball player they'd seen at lunch would actually help them, or if he was just another adult who didn't care. Hold on, Michael whispered. Just hold on a little longer. I'm coming back. And this time, I'm bringing everything I've got. The car sped toward the airport. The clock was ticking, and Michael Jordan was done playing defense. It was time to go on offense. Michael sat in his hotel room, phone pressed to his ear, while Marcus worked on his laptop across the room. Outside, the North Carolina afternoon sun was beginning to sink lower in the sky. Every passing hour felt like a countdown. Yes, I understand the protocols, Michael said into the phone, trying to keep his frustration in check. But this is urgent. Children are in danger. The voice on the other end belonged to a local police sergeant. He sounded tired and skeptical. Mr. Jordan, I appreciate your concern, but we can't just raid a licensed children's home based on a feeling. We need evidence, complaints, something concrete. I'm telling you, something is wrong there. 8 children have disappeared. Transferred, sir. According to our records, those children were legally transferred to other facilities. There's no evidence of foul play. Michael closed his eyes. This was exactly what Isaiah had warned him about. The system didn't believe. The system protected itself. What if I told you one of the children contacted me directly, told me they were in danger? A pause. Did this child give you specific details? Names of staff members involved? Dates? Specific incidents? Michael thought about the phone calls. How could he explain that a 12-year-old had somehow made untraceable calls to his private number? That the calls didn't even show up in his phone's history? It sounded crazy even to him. The details are complicated, Michael admitted. Sir, I understand you want to help, but we deal with children's welfare cases regularly. Sometimes kids cry out for attention. Sometimes they make up stories because they're unhappy with rules and structure. Without concrete evidence, our hands are tied. Michael hung up, feeling defeated. He looked at Marcus. The police won't help. They think I'm overreacting. Marcus didn't look up from his screen. Then we find the evidence ourselves. Give me a few more minutes. I'm onto something. Michael stood and walked to the window. Outside, normal life continued. People walked down the street. Cars passed by. Everyone going about their day, unaware that 7 children were counting down hours until something terrible happened to them. His phone buzzed. A text from his wife. "Everything okay? You left in a hurry this morning." Michael typed back, "Working on something important. I'll explain soon. Love you." He couldn't tell her the full story yet. Not until he knew more. Not until he could make her understand why he was doing this. "Got something," Marcus said suddenly. Michael crossed the room in 3 strides. "What?" Marcus turned his laptop screen. "I've been digging into Mrs. Carmichael's finances. She's careful, but not perfect. 6 months ago, she made a deposit of $50,000. Cash. No clear source. That's a lot of money for a children's home director." "Exactly. And it's not the only one. Over the past 3 years, she's deposited nearly $200,000 in cash. Small amounts, spread out, probably hoping no one would notice the pattern." Michael felt his stomach tighten. Someone's paying her. That's what it looks like. But here's where it gets interesting. Marcus pulled up another document. "I called in a favor from my old FBI partner. She's still active, works in human trafficking. I asked her to run Riverside's profile through their database. And Riverside matches the pattern of facilities that have been used as fronts before. Not enough to warrant an investigation on its own, but enough to raise red flags. The private funding, the isolated location, the focus on orphans with no family ties, the missing transfer records." Michael's hands clenched into fists. Isaiah had been right about everything. "There's more," Marcus continued. "That foundation I mentioned earlier, New Beginnings Initiative, my partner recognized it. It's been linked to 3 other cases in different states. Cases where children disappeared from the foster system and ended up in trafficking rings." The word hung in the air like poison. Trafficking. Michael felt sick. Those 7 children weren't just in danger of being moved to another facility. They were in danger of disappearing into a nightmare that most people didn't want to believe existed. "We need to get them out," Michael said. "Tonight. Right now." "I agree, but we still need legal authority. If we go in there and grab those kids without proper authorization, we could make things worse. Carmichael could claim kidnapping. The kids could end up back in her custody." Michael wanted to scream. Every system designed to protect children was failing them. The police didn't believe. The protocols took too long. The bureaucracy moved like molasses while children's lives hung in the balance. His phone rang. Unknown number. Michael's heart jumped. He answered immediately. "Isaiah?" But it wasn't Isaiah's voice. It was a man's voice, deep and professional. "Mr. Jordan, my name is Devin Chase. I'm a technology security consultant. Marcus Webb asked me to reach out to you." Michael looked at Marcus, who nodded. "Devin's the best tech expert I know. If anyone can figure out how Isaiah made those calls, it's him." "Mr. Chase," Michael said, "can you help us?" "I can try. Marcus sent me your phone data. I've been analyzing it for the past 2 hours. Mr. Jordan, what you described, untraceable calls with no record, shouldn't be possible. But I think I know how it was done. Tell me." The calls used a technique called ghost routing. It's extremely sophisticated, the kind of thing intelligence agencies use for secure communications. Basically, the call bounces through so many servers and encryption layers that it becomes impossible to trace. And the lack of a record in your phone? That's intentional. The call was designed to bypass your phone's logging system entirely. Michael processed this. "You're saying a 12-year-old kid figured out intelligence-level technology? Either he's a prodigy or someone taught him. Either way, it shows incredible resourcefulness. This child was determined to reach you without being detected. Can you trace the calls? Find out where they came from?" Devin was quiet for a moment. "Normally, no. Ghost routing is designed to be untraceable. But whoever set this up made one small mistake. They routed through a specific server cluster that has a unique signature. I can't tell you exactly where the calls originated, but I can confirm they came from within a 50-mile radius of Riverside Children's Home. So Isaiah was telling the truth. The calls came from there." "Yes, and Mr. Jordan, the technology required to set this up costs money. Thousands of dollars. This wasn't just a smart kid with a library computer. Someone provided resources. Someone wanted Isaiah to be able to make untraceable calls." Michael looked at Marcus. "What does that mean?" Marcus leaned back in his chair, thinking, "It means there might be someone inside Riverside helping the kids. An ally. Maybe a staff member who knows what's happening but can't report it directly." Or, Devin added over the phone, "it means someone outside the facility gave Isaiah the tools knowing he'd use them. But who? And why not just report Carmichael themselves?" "Maybe they can't," Marcus said. "Maybe they're in danger too? Or maybe they're part of the system and afraid of retaliation. Whatever the reason, they chose to arm a 12-year-old with technology instead of going directly to authorities." Michael's mind raced. This was bigger than he'd thought. More complicated. More dangerous. "Devin," Michael said, "can you monitor communications from Riverside? See if anyone tries to make calls or send messages tonight?" "I can try. Give me a few hours to set it up. If anyone inside that building tries to communicate with the outside world, I'll know." "Do it. And Marcus, we need more people. We can't do this alone." Marcus nodded. "I've got 2 people coming. Evelyn Park, she's a child advocate attorney, specializes in emergency custody cases. If we're going to get those kids out legally, she's our best shot." "And the other?" "James Thompson. We called him JT, former police detective. He left the force 3 years ago after a corruption case broke his heart. But he's good people. He'll help." "Can we trust them?" Marcus met Michael's eyes. "With my life. I've known both of them for years. They care about kids. They'll fight for them." Michael checked his watch. 3:15 p.m. If Mrs. Carmichael planned to move the children tonight, she'd probably wait until after dark. That gave them maybe 5 or 6 hours. "Get them here, fast. We need a plan." 30 minutes later, Michael's hotel room had become a command center. Evelyn Park arrived first, a sharp woman in her 40s with silver-streaked hair and eyes that looked like they'd seen too much pain. "Marcus filled me in," she said, shaking Michael's hand. "I've reviewed what you've got. It's not much, but it might be enough." "Enough for what?" "An emergency protective custody order. If I can convince a judge that children are in imminent danger, I can get authorization to remove them from Riverside immediately. But I need something solid. A statement from one of the kids. A witness. Something beyond suspicion." "I met them today, 7 children. They're terrified." "Did any of them tell you directly that they were being harmed?" Michael thought back to lunch. Isaiah hadn't said a word with Mrs. Carmichael standing there. None of them had. "No. But I could see it in their eyes." Evelyn's expression was sympathetic but firm. "I believe you, Mr. Jordan. But judges need facts. We need to get one of those children to speak on record." JT arrived next, a broad-shouldered man with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. He listened to the situation, then asked the question everyone was avoiding. "What if we're too late? What if Carmichael moves those kids before we can stop her?" "Then we follow them," Michael said. "We don't let them out of our sight. That's surveillance. We'd need proper authorization for that too." "I don't care about authorization." Michael's frustration boiled over. 7 children are about to disappear into a trafficking ring, and everyone keeps talking about protocols and authorization and evidence. What about just doing what's right? The room went quiet. Evelyn spoke first, her voice gentle. "Mr. Jordan, I understand your frustration. I've felt it 1,000 times in my career. But if we act without legal authority, we could lose these kids forever. Carmichael's lawyers would tear us apart. The kids would be labeled as kidnapping victims. They'd end up right back where they started, or worse. We have to do this right." Michael sank into a chair, his head in his hands. He'd faced pressure before. Game-winning shots, championships on the line. But this was different. This was real life, real children. And the clock kept ticking. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "They're moving us at midnight. Basement. 7 of us. Please hurry." Isaiah. Michael's blood ran cold. He showed the text to the others. "That's our evidence," Evelyn said immediately. "A direct statement from a child in danger. Get me in front of a judge in the next hour, and I can get that custody order." Marcus was already on his phone. "I've got a contact. Judge Miranda Foster. She's tough but fair. If anyone will hear us out, it's her." "Then let's go," Michael said, standing up. "We've got 8 hours until midnight. That's enough time." It had to be enough time, Because Isaiah had reached out one more time, putting himself at even greater risk to send that text. And Michael refused to let that courage be for nothing. As the team mobilized, Michael looked at Isaiah's text one more time. "Please hurry." 2 words that carried the weight of 7 young lives. "I'm coming," Michael whispered to the screen. "Just hold on a little longer." Outside, the sun continued its descent toward the horizon. Darkness was coming. And with it, a race against time that Michael Jordan knew he couldn't afford to lose. Judge Miranda Foster's chambers were on the 3rd floor of the county courthouse. Michael climbed the steps 2 at a time, with Evelyn, Marcus, and JT close behind. It was 4:30 p.m., 7.5 hours until midnight. Evelyn had called ahead, using every connection she had to get an emergency hearing. Judge Foster had agreed to see them, but she'd made no promises. A bailiff led them into a wood-paneled office. Judge Foster sat behind her desk, reading glasses perched on her nose. She was in her 60s, with white hair pulled back in a bun and a face that looked like it had made 1,000 difficult decisions. She looked up when they entered. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw Michael. "Mr. Jordan," she said, standing, "this is unexpected. Please, sit down, all of you." They sat. Michael's leg bounced nervously. Every second felt precious. Judge Foster folded her hands on her desk. "Attorney Park, you've requested an emergency protective custody order for 7 children at Riverside Children's Home. That's a serious request. Walk me through your evidence." Evelyn opened her briefcase and pulled out documents. "Your Honor, over the past 3 years, 8 children have vanished from Riverside with no traceable records. The facility receives funding from a foundation linked to trafficking operations in other states. The director has deposited nearly $200,000 in unexplained cash, and we have direct communication from a child inside stating they will be moved at midnight tonight." She slid Isaiah's text message across the desk, displayed on Michael's phone. Judge Foster studied it carefully. "This text came from an unknown number?" "Yes, Your Honor. The child has been using sophisticated technology to communicate without detection." "Why? Why not simply call the police?" "He tried," Michael spoke up. 3 times. They didn't believe him. They called Riverside to verify his claims, and Mrs. Carmichael painted him as a troubled child who makes up stories." Judge Foster looked at Michael. "And he contacted you specifically because?" Michael hesitated. How could he explain the midnight phone calls? The impossible connection? "Because he believed I would listen when no one else would." The judge was quiet for a long moment. She picked up the phone and examined the text again. "This could be a prank, a setup. Have you verified that this message actually came from inside Riverside?" "My tech expert traced it to within 50 miles of the facility," Marcus said. "It's consistent with other communications we've received from the same source." Consistent, but not confirmed. Judge Foster set the phone down. "Here's my problem. Riverside Children's Home has a spotless record. No complaints, no violations, clean inspections. You're asking me to authorize the removal of 7 children based on suspicion and a text message from an unknown source." "Your Honor," Evelyn leaned forward, "in my 20 years as a child advocate, I've learned that the cleanest-looking facilities are often the most dangerous. They're clean because they're careful, because they know how to hide. We're not asking you to convict anyone. We're asking you to protect children while we investigate. If I grant this order and you're wrong, I'll have violated the rights of a legitimate facility. Mrs. Carmichael could sue. The children could be traumatized by being ripped from their home unnecessarily. And if you don't grant it and we're right," Michael said, his voice tight, 7 children will disappear tonight. They'll end up in a trafficking network. They'll suffer in ways we can't even imagine. And we'll have failed them because we followed procedure instead of instinct." Judge Foster's eyes met his. "Instinct isn't enough in a court of law, Mr. Jordan." "Then what is?" Michael felt his frustration rising. "How many hoops do we have to jump through? How much evidence do we need before we can protect children who are literally begging for help?" "Michael," Marcus said quietly, putting a hand on his arm. But Judge Foster held up her hand. "No, let him speak. I want to hear this." Michael took a breath. "Your Honor, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an investigator. I'm just someone who got a phone call from a scared kid. A kid who'd lost his mother. A kid who'd been let down by every system meant to protect him. A kid who taught himself advanced technology because he was that desperate to be heard. He thought of Isaiah's face at lunch, the fear in his eyes, the way he flinched when Mrs. Carmichael touched his shoulder. That boy is 12 years old, Michael continued. The same age I was when I learned what it meant to struggle. When I learned that sometimes the world doesn't care about you just because you're a kid. He reminded me of something I'd forgotten, that the people with the power to help have a responsibility to use it. Michael leaned forward. You have power, Your Honor. Real power. The power to save 7 children tonight, or the power to let procedure and paperwork cost them everything. I'm asking you, I'm begging you to choose those kids. Take the risk. Make the hard call. Because if we wait for perfect evidence, it'll be too late. The room was silent. Judge Foster studied Michael's face for a long moment. Then she turned to Evelyn. If I grant this order, what exactly are you proposing? Evelyn sat up straighter. We go to Riverside tonight with law enforcement. We remove the 7 children identified in the text message and place them in protective custody. We conduct interviews in a safe environment. If the children confirm abuse or danger, we proceed with a full investigation. If they don't, we return them within 24 hours. And Mrs. Carmichael's rights? She'll be notified immediately. She'll have full legal representation. This isn't about denying due process. It's about prioritizing child safety while we determine the truth. Judge Foster picked up a pen and tapped it against her desk. The seconds stretched out. Finally, she spoke. I'm going to grant a limited emergency order. You have authority to remove the 7 children for up to 72 hours. You will conduct interviews with licensed child psychologists present. You will document everything. And if those children tell you nothing happened, you will return them immediately and face the consequences of this action. Relief flooded through Michael. Thank you, Your Honor. Don't thank me yet. Judge Foster's expression was stern. If you're wrong about this, Mr. Jordan, it won't just be your reputation on the line. It'll be the credibility of emergency protective orders in this county. Other children might suffer because judges will be more hesitant to grant these orders in the future. We're not wrong, Michael said quietly. For those children's sake, I hope you're right. Judge Foster signed the order and handed it to Evelyn. You'll need law enforcement present for the removal. I'll contact Sheriff Rodriguez directly. He's good people. He'll make sure this is done properly. They stood to leave. At the door, Judge Foster called out. Mr. Jordan? Michael turned back. That boy who called you, Isaiah. He showed remarkable courage reaching out the way he did. Make sure that courage wasn't for nothing. I will, Your Honor. I promise. Outside the courthouse, the team regrouped. The sun was lower now, casting long shadows across the parking lot. We've got the order, Evelyn said. Now we need to execute it perfectly. No mistakes. Marcus was already on his phone. Sheriff Rodriguez is meeting us at Riverside at 8 p.m. That gives us time to prepare. What about Devin? Michael asked. Can he monitor communications from Riverside? He's set up, Marcus confirmed. If anyone tries to make calls or send messages from that building, he'll intercept them. We'll know if Carmichael tries to move the kids early. JT pulled out a notebook. We need to think this through. What happens when we walk in there? Carmichael's not going to just hand over 7 kids without a fight. She doesn't have a choice, Evelyn said. We have a court order. But JT's right. We need to be prepared for resistance. She might try to lock doors, hide the children, claim they're not there. Michael thought back to his visit. Isaiah made a gesture when I saw him at lunch. He pointed down. I think there's a basement. A basement? JT's expression darkened. That's where they were keeping them? Maybe, or maybe that's where she plans to move them from. Either way, we need to check it. Marcus looked at his watch. 5 hours until midnight, 3.5 hours until we go in. Let's use that time wisely. Michael, I want you to stay at the hotel. If something goes wrong, absolutely not, Michael interrupted. I'm going. Those kids know my face, they trust me. If we walk in there with just police and lawyers, they'll be terrified. They need to see someone they recognize. Michael, this could get dangerous. If Carmichael's connected to trafficking networks, these people don't play games. I don't care. Michael's voice was steel. I made a promise to Isaiah. I'm keeping it. Marcus looked at JT, who shrugged. He's right. The kids need a familiar face. And frankly, having Michael Jordan there gives us leverage. Carmichael can't make him disappear the way she might with a random social worker. Fine, Marcus conceded, but you stay close to me. You don't go off alone. You follow law enforcement instructions. Agreed? Agreed. They split up to prepare. Evelyn went to brief Sheriff Rodriguez. Marcus and JT gathered supplies, recording equipment, cameras, anything they'd need to document what they found. Devin continued monitoring from his remote location. Michael went back to his hotel room. He tried to eat but couldn't. His stomach was too tight. He tried to watch TV but couldn't focus. His mind kept returning to Isaiah's face, to that text message. Please hurry. At 7 p.m. his phone rang. His wife. Hey, Michael answered. Michael, what's going on? You've been gone all day. The kids are asking about you. Michael closed his eyes. How could he explain this? I'm working on something important. Something I can't walk away from. Is everything okay? You sound stressed. I am stressed, but I'm doing the right thing. I promise I'll explain everything soon. His wife was quiet for a moment. This is about children, isn't it? You get this tone in your voice when kids are involved? Michael smiled despite the tension. She knew him so well. Yeah, it's about kids who need help. Then do what you need to do, but be careful and come home safe. I will. I love you. Love you too. Michael hung up and looked at himself in the mirror. He was wearing jeans and a simple black sweater. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed celebrity. Tonight, he wasn't Michael Jordan, the basketball legend. Tonight, he was just a man trying to keep a promise to a scared kid. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Sheriff Rodriguez is ready. Meeting at Riverside in 45 minutes. Let's go save some kids. Michael grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. In the elevator, his hands shook slightly. Not from fear, from anticipation, from the weight of what they were about to do. The lobby was quiet. A few guests sat in chairs reading or talking. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that across town, 7 children waited in the darkness, hoping someone would finally come for them. Outside, Marcus waited in an SUV. JT sat in the passenger seat. Michael climbed in back. You ready for this? Marcus asked. Michael thought about Isaiah, about his mother who died caring for others, about his courage in making those impossible phone calls, about 6 other children who'd survived by sticking together. I'm ready, Michael said. Let's go get them. The SUV pulled out of the parking lot. The sun had set now. Darkness covered North Carolina. Somewhere in that darkness, at Riverside Children's Home, 7 children waited, and Michael Jordan was coming for them, with legal authority, with good people, with everything he had, because some promises were too important to break. Some children were too precious to abandon, and some moments to find who you really were when the cameras were off and the crowd was gone. This was one of those moments, and Michael wasn't going to let those kids down. 3 police cars sat in the Riverside parking lot. Their lights were off, but their presence sent a clear message. This wasn't a friendly visit. Sheriff Rodriguez stood beside his vehicle, a tall man with gray hair and a weathered face. He looked like someone who'd seen too much but still cared enough to show up. Mr. Jordan, he said, extending his hand. I've heard a lot about you over the years. Never thought we'd meet like this. Michael shook his hand firmly. Thank you for coming, Sheriff. These kids need us. Judge Foster filled me in. I've got 6 deputies ready to go. We'll do this by the book, but we'll do it fast. Rodriguez looked at the cheerful yellow building. I've driven past this place 100 times. Never suspected a thing. That's what makes it effective, JT said. Evil doesn't always look like darkness. Evelyn reviewed the plan one final time. We go in together. I present the custody order to Mrs. Carmichael. She has no legal right to refuse. We locate the 7 children and remove them immediately. No delays, no negotiations. What if she tries to stop us? Michael asked. Then she gets arrested for obstruction, Rodriguez said simply. This order is legal. Anyone who interferes will face charges. Marcus checked his phone. Devon's monitoring shows normal activity inside. No unusual calls or messages in the past hour. Either Carmichael doesn't know we're coming, or she's being very careful. Michael's stomach churned. It was 8:15 p.m., less than 4 hours until midnight. They had time, but not much. "Let's do this," he said. They approached the front entrance as a group. Michael, Marcus, JT, Evelyn, Sheriff Rodriguez, and 4 deputies. The door was unlocked. They walked in. The receptionist from earlier looked up, startled. "Mr. Jordan, what's going on?" "We need to see Mrs. Carmichael immediately," Evelyn said, her voice all business. "Is she here?" Yes, she's in her office, but..." They didn't wait for permission. The group moved through the building like a wave. Staff members stopped and stared. A few children peeked out from doorways, eyes wide. Mrs. Carmichael's office door was closed. Rodriguez knocked once, then opened it without waiting for a response. Mrs. Carmichael sat at her desk, phone in hand. When she saw the police, her face went pale, but she recovered quickly, standing with a practiced smile. "Sheriff Rodriguez, what a surprise. How can I help you?" Evelyn stepped forward and handed her the court order. "Mrs. Carmichael, I'm attorney Evelyn Park. This is an emergency protective custody order signed by Judge Miranda Foster. We're here to remove 7 children from this facility immediately." Mrs. Carmichael took the document. Her hands trembled slightly as she read it. When she looked up, the smile was gone. "This is outrageous." "On what grounds?" "The grounds are detailed in the order," Evelyn said calmly. "You have the right to legal representation. You have the right to contest this order. But right now, we're taking those children into protective custody. I want to call my lawyer." "You can do that, but it doesn't change what's happening tonight. The children are leaving with us." Mrs. Carmichael's eyes darted to Michael. Something cold flashed in her expression. "You did this. You came here pretending to be interested in partnership, and this whole time you were planning to destroy us." "I came here because a child asked for help," Michael said quietly. "And I'm not leaving without them." Mrs. Carmichael laughed, but it was a sharp, bitter sound. "A child asked for help? Let me guess, Isaiah Bennett? That boy is a pathological liar. He's manipulated you, Mr. Jordan. He's manipulated all of you." "Then you have nothing to worry about," Evelyn said. "If the children are safe and happy, they'll say so in their interviews. But right now, we need you to take us to Isaiah Bennett, Marcus Williams, Keisha Thompson, Emma and Evan Martinez, Diego Santos, and Aisha Freeman." Mrs. Carmichael's jaw clenched. For a moment, Michael thought she might refuse. But Rodriguez stepped forward, his hand resting on his belt near his handcuffs. "Ma'am, you can cooperate, or we can do this the hard way. Your choice." Mrs. Carmichael set the court order on her desk. "Fine, follow me." She led them through the building. Michael's heart pounded. Other staff members watched nervously. A few tried to intercept them, asking questions, but Rodriguez waved them back. They reached the dining hall where Michael had seen the children at lunch. It was empty now. Dinner had already happened. "The children are in the common room," Mrs. Carmichael said. "They usually spend evenings there before bed." But when they entered the common room, only about 20 children were present. Michael scanned their faces quickly. None of the 7. "Where are they?" Marcus demanded. Mrs. Carmichael's expression was carefully neutral. "If they're not here, they must be in their rooms. Children are allowed private time if they request it." "Show us their rooms, now." Mrs. Carmichael led them upstairs. They checked room after room. Empty, empty, empty. Michael's anxiety spiked. Had she already moved them? Had they arrived too late? "Where are they?" Rodriguez's voice was hard now. "Stop playing games." "I'm not playing games. Sheriff, I don't know where they are. Children move around the facility freely. They could be anywhere. The library, the gym, the bathroom." Marcus pulled out his phone and showed Devon's monitoring feed. According to our tech expert, 7 cell phones registered to Riverside are currently clustered in one location: the basement. Why would 7 children be in the basement at 8:30 at night? Mrs. Carmichael's face went white. The basement is just storage. Children aren't allowed down there. Then why are they there? Michael stepped closer to her. What's in that basement, Mrs. Carmichael? She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her composure was cracking. Rodriguez made a decision. Someone show me the basement entrance, now. A young staff member who'd been hovering nearby spoke up nervously. It's behind the kitchen. There's a locked door. They moved as a group, through the dining hall, into the industrial kitchen, and there it was, a heavy metal door with a deadbolt lock. Open it, Rodriguez ordered. Mrs. Carmichael didn't move. Open it, or I break it down. You don't understand, Mrs. Carmichael said, and for the first time fear crept into her voice. You're making a terrible mistake. Those children are dangerous. They're being isolated for everyone's safety. Open the door, Michael's voice echoed through the kitchen. Mrs. Carmichael fumbled with keys. Her hands shook as she unlocked the deadbolt. The door swung open, revealing stone steps leading down into darkness. Rodriguez clicked on his flashlight. Two deputies moved forward, hands on their weapons. Stay behind us, Rodriguez told Michael. But there was no way Michael was staying back. He followed close behind as they descended. The basement was cold. The flashlight beams cut through the darkness, revealing concrete walls and old plumbing. And then they saw them. 7 small beds arranged in a row. 7 backpacks, packed and labeled. 7 sets of clothes laid out neatly. 7 bus tickets clipped to a board on the wall. And 7 children sitting on their beds, looking up with wide, frightened eyes. Isaiah saw Michael and jumped to his feet. You came. I didn't think. I hoped, but I didn't think. His voice broke. Tears streamed down his face. The other children stood too. Little Marcus, only 7 years old, ran toward the deputies crying. Keisha held the hands of the twins, Emma and Evan, who looked terrified. Diego pressed himself against the wall. Aisha stood protectively in front of the younger ones. Michael's throat tightened. They'd been down here in the dark, waiting, prepared to be taken somewhere terrible at midnight. And they'd been brave enough to hope that someone might actually come for them. It's okay, Michael said, his voice rough with emotion. You're safe now. We're taking you out of here. Rodriguez surveyed the room, his expression grim. He picked up one of the bus tickets. These are for different cities, all departing tonight, all after midnight. He turned to Mrs. Carmichael, who'd followed them down. You want to explain this? They were being transferred to specialized facilities. The basement was temporary housing. Stop lying, Aisha shouted suddenly. She was 12, nearly as tall as Mrs. Carmichael, and her voice shook with rage. Stop lying. You were selling us. We heard you on the phone. We heard everything. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. Aisha's hands clenched into fists. You did the same thing to my friend Maya. She was here last year. You said she was being transferred. But I heard her crying in this basement the night before she left. She said you told her she was going to a special family. But families don't buy children, Mrs. Carmichael. Traffickers do. The word hung in the air like poison. Rodriguez looked at the bus tickets again, at the packed bags, at the 7 children who'd been isolated in a basement on the night they were supposed to disappear. Mrs. Carmichael, you're under arrest. On what charges? Her voice was shrill now. I've done nothing wrong. This is all a misunderstanding. Attempted child trafficking, endangerment, kidnapping. We'll figure out the rest at the station. Rodriguez nodded to his deputies. Read her rights. Get her out of here. And someone called Child Protective Services. We need emergency foster placement for these kids tonight. 2 deputies took Mrs. Carmichael by the arms. She struggled, her careful facade completely gone now. You're making a mistake. You don't know who you're dealing with. This is bigger than me. They'll come for these children. They'll... Get her out, Rodriguez said coldly. As Mrs. Carmichael was led away, still shouting, Michael knelt down in front of Isaiah. The boy looked exhausted, drained, like he'd been holding himself together by pure willpower and had finally reached his limit. You did it, Michael said quietly. You saved yourself and your friends. You're the bravest person I've ever met. Isaiah's lip trembled. I was so scared. I thought no one would believe me. I thought we'd just disappear like the others. Not tonight. Not ever. Michael looked at the other 6 children. All of you are safe now, I promise. Little Marcus walked over and wrapped his arms around Michael's leg. Thank you for coming. Isaiah said you would. He said Michael Jordan never gives up. Michael felt tears prick his eyes. He picked Marcus up and held him. That's right, and I'm not giving up on any of you. Evelyn was already on her phone, making arrangements. I've got emergency foster families on standby. They're vetted, licensed, and ready. The children will be placed temporarily while we sort this out. JT was photographing everything in the basement. The beds, the bags, the tickets, all evidence. Marcus stood beside Michael. You did good. These kids are alive because you listened. Isaiah did the hard part. He reached out. He took the risk. And you answered. Not everyone would have. Rodriguez came over to the group. We need to get these children out of here and to the station. They'll need to give statements. Are you okay with that? He directed the question at Isaiah. Isaiah nodded. We'll tell you everything. All of us. We're not scared anymore. The 7 children gathered their few belongings. Not the packed bags Mrs. Carmichael had prepared, but their own things. Stuffed animals, books, small treasures. As they climbed the stairs out of the basement, Michael stayed close to Isaiah. The other children held hands, supporting each other. When they emerged into the kitchen, the entire facility was in chaos. Police were everywhere. Staff members were being questioned. Other children watched with confusion and fear. One teenage girl approached Isaiah. Did you really do it? Did you get her arrested? Isaiah nodded. The girl's eyes filled with tears. My sister Maya. She disappeared last year. Mrs. Carmichael said she was adopted. But she never called me. Never wrote. I've been trying to find her. We'll find her, Rodriguez said gently. This is just the beginning of the investigation. If your sister is out there, we'll bring her home. As they walked toward the police cars, Michael noticed something. The 7 children weren't walking alone. Other kids from Riverside had come outside. They lined the path, silent witnesses. Some were crying, some looked relieved, some looked angry. Isaiah paused and turned back to them. Don't be scared, he called out. Tell the truth, tell them everything. They're finally listening. Several children nodded. A few wiped away tears. One boy, maybe 14, raised his fist in solidarity. The 7 children climbed into police vehicles. Michael rode with Isaiah, Marcus, and Keisha. As they pulled away from Riverside, Isaiah looked back at the building one last time. I never thought I'd leave here, he said quietly. I thought that place would be the end of me. It's not the end, Michael told him. It's a new beginning. For all of you. Isaiah turned to look at him. In the dim light of the car, his eyes looked older than 12. What happens now? Now you get to be a kid again. You get to be safe. You get to heal. And you? Isaiah asked. You're going back to your life. Back to being Michael Jordan. Michael thought about that. About his penthouse and his privacy and his comfortable distance from the world's pain. Maybe, he said. Or maybe this changed me too. Maybe I needed you as much as you needed me. Isaiah smiled, a real smile, the first Michael had seen from him. My mom would have liked you. She always said the best people are the ones who show up when it's hard. Michael's throat tightened. Your mom raised an incredible son. She'd be so proud of you. As the police car drove through the North Carolina night, taking 7 rescued children towards safety, Michael looked out at the darkness and thought about impossible phone calls and untraceable connections. He thought about a 12-year-old boy who'd taught himself advanced technology because he refused to give up. He thought about 6 other children who'd survived by sticking together. And he thought about how sometimes the most important victories weren't on basketball courts or in championship arenas. Sometimes they happened in basements and courtrooms and moments when you chose to answer the call even when it didn't make sense. Tonight, 7 children would sleep safely for the first time in months. And that was a victory worth more than any trophy Michael had ever won. The police station was buzzing with activity. Officers moved through hallways. Phones rang constantly. The investigation into Riverside had exploded into something much bigger than anyone expected. Michael sat in a waiting room with Marcus and JT. The 7 children were being interviewed separately by child psychologists and trained investigators. Evelyn was coordinating everything, making sure each child had proper support. It was nearly midnight, the time when Mrs. Carmichael had planned to move them. But instead of disappearing into a trafficking network, the 7 children were safe, telling their stories, finally being heard. Sheriff Rodriguez emerged from one of the interview rooms, his face grave. He motioned for Michael to follow him to a private office. "You need to hear this," Rodriguez said once they were alone. "We've been interviewing the children for 3 hours. What they've told us, it's worse than we thought." Michael's stomach dropped. "How much worse?" Rodriguez pulled out a notebook. "According to the children, Mrs. Carmichael has been running this operation for at least 5 years. She specifically targeted orphans, kids with no family to ask questions. She'd keep them for 6 months to a year, long enough to build a paper trail showing they were troubled and difficult to place. Making it easier to claim they needed specialized care," Michael said. "Exactly. Then she'd stage transfers. The children would be taken from Riverside in the middle of the night. The official records would show they went to other facilities. But according to Aisha, who overheard conversations, they were actually being delivered to buyers." Michael felt sick. "Buyers? You mean people who purchase children?" "Yes. The trafficking network Mrs. Carmichael connected with specializes in domestic adoption fraud and labor trafficking. They make it look legitimate. Forged adoption papers, fake background checks. The children disappear into homes across the country, and no one questions it because the paperwork looks clean. The 8 children who disappeared, can we find them?" "We're trying. Aisha gave us names. Isaiah provided dates when he noticed kids vanishing. We've contacted the FBI. They're treating this as a major trafficking case now." Rodriguez rubbed his face, exhausted. "But Michael, you need to understand something. These operations are sophisticated. The children might be scattered across multiple states. Finding them will take time. What about the 7 we saved? What happens to them now? Emergency foster placements for tonight, then we'll work on more permanent solutions. Evelyn's already mobilizing resources. These kids will be monitored closely. No one's going to lose track of them again." Michael thought about Isaiah, about his courage, about how close they'd come to losing him forever. "Can I see them before they leave?" Rodriguez hesitated. "They're exhausted. They've been through hell tonight. But, yeah, I think they'd want to see you, especially Isaiah. That kid talks about you like you hung the moon." Rodriguez led Michael to a larger room where the 7 children sat together. They looked small and tired, but there was something different about them now. The fear in their eyes had been replaced by something else. Hope. Isaiah stood when he saw Michael. "Mr. Jordan?" "Hey," Michael said softly, kneeling to be at their eye level. "I heard you all did great in your interviews. You told the truth. You helped the police understand what happened." "Will they find the others?" Keisha asked. She clutched a stuffed rabbit someone had given her. "Maya and the other kids who disappeared? They're going to try. The FBI is involved now. They have resources and people who specialize in finding missing children." Emma, one of the twins, spoke up quietly. "What's going to happen to us? Where will we go?" It was the question Michael had been dreading. These 7 children had survived by sticking together. Now the system would separate them, sending them to different foster homes, different cities maybe. "Tonight, you'll go to safe homes with kind families," Michael said. Evelyn made sure of it. "You'll be taken care of." "But we won't be together," Evan said, voicing what they were all thinking. The room went quiet. Little Marcus started crying. "I don't want to be alone. We promised we'd stay together." Diego put his arm around Marcus. "We'll find each other again. We promised. Remember?" "You shouldn't have to find each other," Michael said, feeling anger rise in his chest. These children had protected each other. They'd survived together. And now the system that had failed them once was going to separate them. He stood and walked to where Rodriguez waited by the door. "They can't be split up. Michael, I understand what you're feeling, but we don't have a single foster home that can take 7 children. It's not realistic." Then make it realistic. Find a group home, a facility that can keep them together. After what they just went through, you want to put them in another facility? That's just going to traumatize them more. Michael's hands clenched. Rodriguez was right, but that didn't make it easier. Evelyn joined them, overhearing the conversation. There might be another option. It's not conventional. But given the circumstances, what option? Michael asked. Emergency kinship placement. If someone with the proper resources and clearances volunteered to take temporary custody, a judge could approve it, especially given the unique circumstances of this case. How long would that take? To find someone? Evelyn looked at him meaningfully. That depends on who volunteers. The implication hung in the air. Michael thought about his home in Chicago, his family, his life that was carefully ordered and private. Then he thought about Isaiah's phone calls, about finding these children in that basement, about little Marcus crying because he didn't want to be alone. I need to make a phone call, Michael said. He stepped into the hallway and dialed his wife. It rang 3 times. Michael, it's past midnight. Are you okay? I'm fine, but I need to talk to you about something important. He took a breath. Remember I said I was working on something with children? Yes. I found 7 kids who were being trafficked. We got them out tonight. They're safe. But the system wants to split them up, send them to different foster homes. These kids have been through hell together. They've protected each other. They shouldn't be separated. His wife was quiet for a moment. Michael, what are you asking? I'm asking, what would you think about us taking them? Temporarily, just until proper placements can be found. We have the space, we have the resources, and these kids, they need someone who won't give up on them. The silence stretched out. Michael's heart pounded. All 7? His wife finally asked. All 7. More silence. Then, tell me about them. Michael felt hope surge. He told her about Isaiah, the brilliant 12-year-old who'd taught himself technology to make impossible phone calls. About Marcus, 7 years old and terrified of being alone. About Keisha, Emma, Evan, Diego, and Aisha. All of them brave, all of them survivors. When he finished, his wife sighed. You know this is crazy, right? We're not foster parents. We don't have training. Our lives are already complicated. I know, but, she interrupted gently, I also know you. And I know that look you get when you've decided something matters. These children matter to you. They do. Then bring them home. We'll figure it out together. We always do. Relief washed over Michael. Are you sure? No, she said honestly. I'm terrified. But I'm also thinking about our own kids. About the lessons we want to teach them. About what it means to have privilege and power and choose to use it for good. So yes, bring them home. I love you. I love you too. And Michael, you're going to owe me the full story. Everything. I promise. Michael hung up and walked back to where Evelyn and Rodriguez waited. I'll take them, he said. Temporary emergency custody. All 7. Whatever paperwork needs to happen, let's make it happen. Evelyn smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. I've already started the preliminary paperwork. Given your resources, background, and the extraordinary circumstances, I think we can get emergency approval by morning. That fast? When you're Michael Jordan and you're trying to protect 7 children who just survived a trafficking attempt? Yes, that fast. The system can move when it wants to. Rodriguez looked skeptical. Michael, are you sure about this? 7 traumatized children. It's going to be intense. I'm sure. Michael looked back at the room where the 7 kids sat. Isaiah was comforting Marcus. Aisha had her arms around the twins. Diego and Keisha were talking quietly. They'd formed their own family in that terrible place. They shouldn't be separated, not after everything they've been through. Okay, Rodriguez said. Then let's make it happen. Michael walked back into the room. 7 pairs of eyes turned toward him. I have something to tell you, he said, sitting down with them. You're not going to different foster homes tonight. The children looked confused. Tonight, all of you are coming home with me, to Chicago. My family has a big house, plenty of room. You'll stay together. for as long as it takes to figure out what comes next. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Isaiah's eyes filled with tears. All of us? Together? All of you. Together. Marcus jumped up and hugged Michael. Then Keisha joined. Then the twins. Soon all 7 children were surrounding him. Some crying, some laughing, all of them clinging to the promise of staying together. Why? Aisha asked through her tears. Why would you do this for us? Michael thought about how to answer. About midnight phone calls and impossible connections. About his own father and the lessons he'd taught about helping others. Because you reached out when you needed help, he said simply. And I believe that when someone asks for help, really asks, you answer if you can. You 7 have been through something terrible, but you survived together. You protected each other. That's family. Real family. And families shouldn't be separated. Isaiah wiped his eyes. Is this really happening? This isn't a dream? It's really happening. Though I should warn you, my house has rules. Bedtimes, chores, homework, and there's going to be a lot of basketball, Diego laughed. I can live with that. We all can, Aisha said, squeezing the younger children close. Together. The next few hours were a blur. Paperwork was signed. Emergency approvals were granted. Judge Foster was contacted and gave her blessing. Phone calls were made to prepare Michael's home in Chicago for 7 unexpected guests. By 3 a.m., they were boarding Michael's private jet. The children had never been on a plane before. Their eyes were wide with wonder despite their exhaustion. Marcus pressed his face against the window as they took off. We're flying. We're actually flying. Just like Michael Jordan used to, Isaiah said with a small smile. As the plane climbed into the dark sky, leaving North Carolina behind, Michael watched the 7 children. Some were already asleep, curled up in the comfortable seats. Others stayed awake, talking quietly, processing everything that had happened. Evelyn sat across from Michael. You know this is just the beginning, right? These kids will need therapy, education support, help dealing with trauma. This isn't going to be easy. I know, Michael said, but nothing worth doing is easy. You're a good man, Michael Jordan. Those kids are lucky. I think I'm the lucky one. Michael looked at Isaiah, who was staring out the window at the clouds. They reminded me what really matters, what real courage looks like. The plane flew through the night, carrying 7 rescued children toward a new beginning, toward a home where they'd be safe, where they'd be together, where they'd have time to heal. Michael's phone buzzed. A text from his wife. The kids are excited. We've set up rooms. Waited up to meet everyone. See you soon. He smiled. His family was ready. Not just ready, eager to help. To open their home and hearts to 7 children who desperately needed both. Isaiah shifted in his seat and looked at Michael. Mr. Jordan, can I ask you something? Of course. And Isaiah? You can call me Michael, or whatever feels comfortable. Isaiah nodded. Okay, Michael. That first night when I called you, you didn't know me. You didn't know if I was telling the truth. But you answered anyway. Why? Michael thought back to that moment. Sitting alone in his penthouse, hearing that frightened voice. The mention of 1993 that had cut through all his defenses. Because something in your voice told me you were real, Michael said. And because a long time ago, my father taught me that the most important calls are the ones that cost you something to answer. Your call cost me my privacy, my comfort, my safe distance from pain. But answering it gave me something more valuable. What? Purpose. Meaning. A reminder that some things are more important than fame, or success, or protecting yourself from the world's problems. Michael put his hand on Isaiah's shoulder. You gave me a gift, Isaiah. You let me be the person I've always wanted to be. Someone who shows up when it matters. Isaiah leaned against Michael's shoulder, exhausted. My mom used to say that heroes aren't people in capes. They're people who answer when someone calls for help. Your mom was right. As Isaiah fell asleep, Michael looked around the plane. 7 children who should have disappeared tonight were instead flying towards safety, toward a second chance, toward a future they'd almost lost. And somewhere out there, 8 other children were still missing. But now, with Mrs. Carmichael arrested and the FBI investigating, there was hope. Real hope that they'd be found. Michael closed his eyes, feeling the exhaustion of the day catch up with him. But underneath the tiredness was something else. Something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. The peace of knowing he'd done the right thing. Of knowing that 7 lives had been saved. Of knowing that sometimes the universe puts you exactly where you need to be, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it's terrifying, even if it changes everything. The plane flew on through the darkness, carrying its precious cargo toward the dawn, and toward home. The plane touched down in Chicago at 5:47 a.m. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Michael looked at the 7 sleeping children and felt his heart tighten. In a few minutes, they'd wake up in a completely new world. A world where they were safe, where they were wanted, where they didn't have to be afraid anymore. "Hey," he said softly, gently shaking Isaiah's shoulder. "We're home." Isaiah's eyes opened slowly. For a moment, confusion crossed his face. Then memory returned, and with it, a cautious smile. "Chicago? Chicago." One by one, the other children woke up. Marcus rubbed his eyes sleepily. The twins held hands as they looked out the windows. Keisha, Diego, and Aisha stretched and gathered their few belongings. As they descended the plane steps, a car was waiting. Not a limousine or anything flashy, just a large SUV that could fit everyone comfortably. The drive to Michael's home took 30 minutes. The children pressed their faces against the windows, watching the city wake up around them. They'd been through so much darkness. Now they were seeing a new dawn. Michael's house sat on a quiet, tree-lined street. It was large but not ostentatious. A home, not a mansion. Lights glowed warm in the windows. As they pulled into the driveway, the front door opened. Michael's wife stood there, wrapped in a robe, her face kind and welcoming. Behind her, Michael's own children peeked out curiously. "Everyone out," Michael said gently. "Time to meet the family." The 7 children climbed out of the SUV slowly, nervously. They stood in a cluster on the driveway, unsure what to do. Michael's wife walked down the steps and smiled at them. "Hi, I'm Yvette. Welcome home." Marcus, the youngest, looked up at her with wide eyes. "Is this really where we're staying?" "It really is, for as long as you need." Yvette knelt down to his level. "Are you hungry? I made breakfast. Pancakes, eggs, bacon, whatever you like." At the mention of food, several stomachs growled audibly. The children looked at each other, then at Michael, as if asking permission to be excited. "It's okay," Michael said. "You're allowed to be hungry. You're allowed to eat. You're allowed to be here." They filed into the house. Michael's children, Jeffrey, Marcus, and Jasmine, stared at the newcomers with curiosity but no judgment. Yvette had clearly prepared them well. The kitchen was warm and bright. The table had been expanded to fit everyone. Plates were stacked. Food covered the counter. For a moment, the 7 children just stood there, taking it in. "Sit anywhere you like," Yvette said. "Don't be shy." Slowly, they sat. Aisha made sure the younger ones got seats first. Isaiah positioned himself where he could see the exits, a habit born from survival. Michael noticed but didn't comment. These children had learned to be vigilant. That wouldn't disappear overnight. As they ate, Michael's daughter Jasmine tried to make conversation. "I'm 9, she told Keisha. "How old are you?" "9 too," Keisha said quietly. "Do you like basketball?" Keisha shrugged. "I've never really played." "We have a court, out back. Dad can teach you. He's pretty good." Jasmine said this so earnestly that Isaiah actually laughed. The first real laugh Michael had heard from him. "Pretty good?" Isaiah said. "Your dad is Michael Jordan." "Yeah, but he's also just Dad." Jasmine grabbed another pancake. "He makes terrible jokes and sometimes burns toast." The tension in the room eased slightly. These weren't strangers evaluating them. This was just a family making room for more people. After breakfast, Yvette showed them around the house. "We've set up rooms for you. We didn't know your preferences, so we did our best. You can change anything you want. This is your home now." She led them upstairs. 3 bedrooms had been prepared. One for the girls, Keisha and Aisha. One for the older boys, Isaiah and Diego. One for the younger children, Marcus, Emma, and Evan. Each room had new beds with soft blankets, dressers with clothes in various sizes, books on shelves, toys in bins, everything a child might need. Emma touched a stuffed bear on one of the beds, tears welling in her eyes. "This is all for us?" "All for you," Yvette confirmed. The children explored their rooms with careful wonder. They'd learned not to get attached to things, learned that comfort could be taken away at any moment. But Yvette and Michael could see them starting to hope. "There are bathrooms attached to each room," Yvette explained. "Towels in the closets. If you need anything at all, you just ask. No question is too small." Isaiah stood in the doorway of his room, looking at the bed, the desk, the window that showed the backyard basketball court. "How long can we stay?" It was the question all 7 were thinking. Yvette looked at Michael, who came to stand beside her. "We're working on that," he said honestly. "The legal process takes time, but you're not going anywhere unless you want to. We're going to figure this out together." "What if the system says we have to leave?" Aisha asked, her voice hard. She'd been let down by the system too many times to trust easily. "Then we fight the system," Michael said simply. "Look, I know you've all been through hell. I know adults have let you down. I know you have every reason not to trust anyone. But I'm asking you to try. Just try. Give us a chance to prove we're different." The 7 children looked at each other. They'd developed their own silent communication in Riverside. Marcus nodded first, then Keisha, then the twins, then Diego, then Aisha. Finally, Isaiah. "Okay," Isaiah said. "We'll try. That's all I ask." Michael checked his watch. "It's early. You've had a long night. Why don't you rest? Sleep as long as you need. When you wake up, we'll be here." The children retreated to their rooms. Yvette and Michael stood in the hallway, listening to doors close, beds creak, whispers fade. "You okay?" Yvette asked her husband. Michael leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. "I don't know. 7 kids, Yvette. What have we gotten ourselves into?" "Something important." She took his hand. "Our kids asked me this morning why we were doing this. You know what I told them?" "What?" "I said that sometimes God puts people in your path who need you. And when that happens, you don't ask why. You don't question if it's convenient. You just say yes." She smiled. "You said yes, Michael. Now we make it work." Over the next few days, the house transformed. 7 traumatized children slowly began to trust that this wasn't temporary, that the food wouldn't run out, that the kindness wasn't an act. Michael hired therapists, specialists in childhood trauma who came to the house for private sessions. He didn't want the children to feel like they were being paraded to appointments. He brought help to them. Dr. Sarah Chen was the lead therapist. She was in her 50s, with gentle eyes and a calm presence. After her first sessions with each child, she pulled Michael and Yvette aside. "These children have been through severe trauma," she said. "What happened at Riverside was abuse on multiple levels. They were isolated, manipulated, and prepared for trafficking. The psychological impact will take years to fully process." "What can we do?" Yvette asked. "What you're already doing. Provide stability, consistency, safety. Let them be children again. They've had to be adults for too long. They've had to protect themselves when the world should have been protecting them." Dr. Chen paused. "But I want you to be prepared. Healing isn't linear. Some days will be good. Some days the trauma will surface. They might have nightmares, panic attacks, trust issues. This is going to be a long journey." "We're ready," Michael said. "Whatever they need." The nightmares started on the 3rd night. Michael woke at 2 a.m. to screaming. He ran down the hall and found Marcus sitting up in bed, tears streaming down his face, eyes unfocused. "They're taking me away," Marcus sobbed. "Don't let them take me away." Emma and Evan were awake too, crying, trying to comfort their roommate but also scared themselves. Michael sat on Marcus's bed and pulled the little boy into his arms. "You're safe. You're in Chicago. You're in my house. No one is taking you anywhere. But the bad people are in jail. Mrs. Carmichael can't hurt you anymore." Marcus clung to Michael like a lifeline. Promise? Promise you won't let anyone take me? I promise. Yvette appeared in the doorway with warm milk. Isaiah was behind her, looking worried. Is he okay? Isaiah asked. He had a nightmare, Michael said. Come on in, all of you. Soon. All 7 children were crowded into the room. The older ones sat on the floor. The younger ones curled up on the beds. Yvette distributed warm milk and cookies. When I was scared as a kid, Michael said, my dad used to tell me stories. Want to hear one? 7 heads nodded. Michael told them about his childhood, about being cut from his high school basketball team, about how devastated he felt, about how his father told him that failure wasn't the end. It was just information. My dad said, Michael, you're going to fall down a lot in life. The question isn't whether you fall, it's whether you get back up and learn something. Michael looked around at the 7 faces watching him. You all fell down, hard. Life knocked you to the ground in the worst way. But you got back up. You protected each other. You fought. You survived. That makes you stronger than most adults I know. I don't feel strong, Keisha whispered. I feel scared all the time. Being scared doesn't mean you're not strong. It means you're human. And it's okay to be scared here. You're allowed to have feelings. You're allowed to need help. Isaiah spoke up from his spot on the floor. At Riverside, Mrs. Carmichael said emotions were weakness. She said we needed to be tough. Mrs. Carmichael was wrong about a lot of things, Michael said firmly. Emotions aren't weakness. They're what make us human. And needing help isn't weakness either. It's wisdom. The strongest people I know are the ones brave enough to admit when they need support. They talked until 3 a.m. about fears and hopes, about what they missed from their old lives before foster care, about what they dreamed for the future. Finally, exhaustion won. One by one, the children drifted back to sleep. But this time, they slept peacefully. Michael and Yvette returned to their own room. You were good with them, Yvette said. I just told them the truth. Michael climbed into bed, bone-tired but satisfied. These kids have been lied to enough. They deserve honesty. What are we going to do long-term? The emergency custody is temporary. Michael was quiet for a moment. I don't know yet, but I know we can't let them go back into the system. Not after everything. They need stability. You're talking about adoption, Yvette said softly. Maybe, or long-term foster care or something. I just know that these 7 kids belong together, and right now they belong here. Yvette snuggled against him. Our kids have been amazing through all this. They've welcomed 7 strangers without complaint. They're learning what real privilege means. It's not about having things, it's about using what you have to help others. Over the next week, patterns emerged, routines developed. The children started to relax. Mornings meant breakfast together. Michael's rule was simple. Everyone ate as a family. No rushing, no stress, just food and conversation. Afternoons meant activities. Michael taught basketball basics on the backyard court. Yvette helped with homework. The children played with Michael's kids, slowly learning how to just be children again. Evenings meant family time, movies, games, reading. The children got to choose what they wanted to do. Isaiah watched everything carefully. He still positioned himself near exits, still counted the people in the room. But slowly, very slowly, he was learning to trust. One afternoon, he found Michael in his study. Can I talk to you? Isaiah asked. Always, come in. Isaiah sat in a chair across from Michael's desk. He looked nervous. What's on your mind? Michael asked gently. I've been thinking about the other 8 kids, the ones who disappeared before us, the ones Mrs. Carmichael sent away. The police and FBI are looking for them. I know, but I remember things that might help. Phone numbers I saw on Mrs. Carmichael's desk, names I overheard, dates. Isaiah pulled out a notebook. I wrote down everything I could remember. Is that helpful? Michael took the notebook. Page after page of careful notes. Isaiah had documented everything with the precision of a trained investigator. This is more than helpful. This is incredible. Can I share this with Sheriff Rodriguez? Yes, Please, those kids need to come home too. Michael looked at this 12-year-old who'd been through hell and was still thinking about others. You're remarkable, Isaiah. You know that? Isaiah looked down. I just did what I had to do. That's exactly what makes you remarkable. Isaiah hesitated, then asked the question that had been weighing on him. Why did my call reach you? Why did the universe connect us? Out of all the people in the world, why you? Michael had wondered the same thing. I don't know. Maybe because I needed you as much as you needed me. Maybe because we were supposed to learn something from each other. What did you learn from me? Michael thought carefully. I learned that real courage isn't about never being scared. It's about being terrified and acting anyway. I learned that one person reaching out can change everything. And I learned that the most important victories aren't the ones everyone sees. They're the quiet ones, the private ones, the moments when you choose to help someone even when it costs you. Isaiah smiled. My mom would have said you're full of wisdom. Your mom sounds like she was pretty wise herself. She was. Isaiah's eyes grew distant. Do you think she'd be proud of me for fighting back, for not giving up? I think she'd be incredibly proud. And I think she's the reason you found the strength to make that call. She raised you to be brave, to be smart, to be kind. That doesn't go away just because she's gone. Isaiah wiped his eyes. Thank you for answering, for believing me, for bringing all of us here. Thank you for trusting me with your story. As Isaiah left the study, Michael looked at the notebook full of careful observations. This child had survived horror and emerged thinking about how to save others. He picked up his phone and called Sheriff Rodriguez. I've got more information on the missing children. A lot more. Isaiah documented everything. Send it over. The FBI will want to see this. Rodriguez? How's the investigation going? Mrs. Carmichael is cooperating now, trying to cut a deal. She's giving up names. The whole network is unraveling. We've already located 3 of the missing children. They're safe now. Relief flooded through Michael. 3 out of 8. That's progress. Because of you. Because you answered that phone call. You saved more than 7 children, Michael. You exposed an entire operation. After hanging up, Michael sat in his study and thought about impossible phone calls and untraceable connections. About how one moment of choice, answering instead of hanging up, had changed everything. Outside, he could hear laughter. The children were playing basketball, learning, healing, living. And that was enough. More than enough. That was everything. 3 months passed. 3 months of therapy sessions and family dinners. 3 months of nightmares slowly becoming less frequent. 3 months of 7 traumatized children learning that safety could be real, not just promised. The investigation into Riverside had expanded beyond anyone's expectations. Mrs. Carmichael's cooperation led to 17 arrests across 6 states. All 8 missing children had been found and returned to relatives or placed in protective custody. The media had exploded with the story. Michael Jordan had tried to keep his involvement quiet, but the truth leaked out. Reporters camped outside his home. News anchors debated child welfare reform. Politicians promised changes to the foster system. Michael ignored most of it. His focus stayed on the 7 children living under his roof. Isaiah had started 8th grade at a private school nearby. He was thriving academically but still struggled socially. Making friends was hard when you'd learned that trust was dangerous. Marcus had enrolled in 2nd grade. He still had nightmares occasionally, but they were getting better. He'd attached himself to Michael like glue, calling him Mr. Michael and following him everywhere. Keisha, Emma, Evan, Diego, and Aisha had all settled into school routines. They were healing, each at their own pace. Dr. Chen saw them twice a week, helping them process trauma and build coping skills. Michael's own children had adjusted remarkably well. They'd learned to share their home, their parents, and their lives. They'd learned that family wasn't just biology, it was choice and commitment. But the question of what came next hung over everything. The emergency custody order had been extended twice, but it couldn't last forever. Eventually, the system would demand a permanent solution. The 7 children would need legal guardians. permanent homes, futures that extended beyond temporary arrangements. One evening in late October, after the children were in bed, Michael and Yvette sat in their bedroom talking. "We need to make a decision," Yvette said. "The social worker called again today. They need to know our intentions." Michael stared at the ceiling. "I know. Do you want to adopt them? All 7? The question he'd been avoiding for 3 months. Adoption meant forever. It meant legal commitment. It meant transforming from temporary guardian to permanent father. "I don't know," Michael admitted. "It's not that I don't care about them. I do. But 7 kids, Yvette. Our lives would change completely. No more privacy, no more spontaneity. Everything would revolve around them." "It already does," Yvette pointed out gently. "Temporarily, but adoption is permanent. What if we're not enough? What if they need something we can't give them?" Yvette sat up and looked at her husband. "Michael Jordan, I have never seen you back down from a challenge. You've faced the best athletes in the world. You've built businesses, you've overcome every obstacle put in front of you. And now you're scared of 7 children?" "I'm scared of failing them," Michael said quietly. "They've already been failed by so many people. What if I'm just another person who lets them down? Then we'd be like every other parent in the world, imperfect, trying our best, making mistakes and learning." Yvette took his hand. "But here's what I know. Those kids love you, they trust you, and you've already given them something precious. Hope." Michael thought about Isaiah, about Marcus, about all 7 of them. "What do you want to do?" he asked his wife. "I want to keep them, all of them. I want to give them a real home, a real family. I want to watch them grow up and graduate and become whoever they're meant to be." Yvette's eyes filled with tears. "They're already ours, Michael. We just need to make it official." "What about our other kids? Have you asked them?" "I have. They said yes without hesitation. Jeffrey said, 'Dad, they're already our brothers and sisters. Why wouldn't we want them to stay?'" Michael's throat tightened. His children had bigger hearts than he'd realized. And the logistics? 7 more kids means college funds, activities, health insurance, everything times 7. We can afford it. That's not the question. The question is whether you're ready to commit, whether you're ready to be their father, not just their temporary guardian. Michael sat in silence, wrestling with fear and hope and responsibility. Finally, he spoke. "I need to talk to them first, all 7. They deserve a choice in this too." The next evening, Michael asked the 7 children to join him in the living room. Yvette and his other kids were there too. Everyone sat down, sensing something important was about to happen. Michael looked at the 7 faces watching him. Isaiah, sitting straight and alert. Marcus, curled up next to Yvette. Keisha, holding hands with Jasmine. The twins, Diego and Aisha, all waiting nervously. "I want to talk to you about the future," Michael began. "You've been here for 3 months now. You've become part of our family, our daily routines, our lives." Isaiah's expression became guarded. He knew what was coming. Either they were staying or they were being sent away. "The emergency custody order is going to end soon," Michael continued. "That means decisions need to be made about where you'll go. What happens next?" Aisha's jaw clenched. "You're sending us back into the system." "No," Michael said quickly. "That's not what I'm saying. But I need to ask you all something. And I need you to be honest. Completely honest." He took a breath. "Do you want to stay here? Permanently? As part of this family?" The room went silent. "What do you mean permanently?" Isaiah asked carefully. "I mean adoption. Legal adoption. You'd become Jordans. This would be your home. We'd be your family. Forever." Marcus's eyes went wide. "Really? We could stay forever?" "If that's what you want. But I need you to understand what that means. It means rules and responsibilities. It means school and homework and chores. It means therapy when you need it. It means being part of a family, which isn't always easy. It also means," Yvette added, "that you'd be stuck with us, through good times and hard times, through arguments and celebrations, through everything. That's what family means." Keisha spoke up, her voice small. "What if we mess up? What if we make mistakes? Will you send us away? Michael's heart broke. No. That's what I'm trying to tell you. If we do this, it's forever. You can't get kicked out of a family for making mistakes. You learn, you grow, you try again, but you don't get abandoned. Why would you do this? Aisha asked, her voice hard with skepticism. We're not your responsibility. You already saved us. You don't owe us anything more. Michael looked at Yvette, then at his own children, then back at the 7. You're right, I don't owe you anything. But that's not why I'm asking. I'm asking because somewhere along the way, you became important to me. All of you. You're not obligations or responsibilities. You're people I care about. People I want in my life. He looked directly at Aisha. I know you've been hurt. I know adults have let you down. I know you have every reason to be skeptical. But I'm asking you to take one more risk. Trust one more time. Give this family a chance to be real. Isaiah spoke, his voice shaking. What about the 7 of us? Would we stay together? That's non-negotiable, Michael said firmly. All 7 or none. You're a unit. That doesn't change. The 7 children looked at each other. Their silent communication was back. Years of depending on each other had created a bond that didn't need words. Finally, Isaiah nodded to the others. He stood up and faced Michael. Can we have tonight to think about it? To talk together? Of course. Take whatever time you need. The 7 children filed upstairs to Isaiah and Diego's room. The door closed behind them. Michael's daughter Jasmine looked worried. What if they say no? Then we respect their choice, Yvette said, and we help them find good homes. Together. But they belong here, Jeffrey protested. They're already our family. They are, Michael agreed, but belonging has to be a choice. We can't force it. Upstairs, the 7 children sat in a circle on the floor of Isaiah's room. So, Aisha said, what do we think? I want to stay, Marcus said immediately. I like it here. I like Mr. Michael and Miss Yvette. I like having brothers and sisters. I don't want to leave. Me too, Keisha agreed. I've never felt safe anywhere else. The twins nodded. This is the first place that feels like home, Emma said. Diego was quiet for a moment. What if it's a trick? What if we say yes and then they change their minds? They won't, Isaiah said with certainty. I've watched them for 3 months. They're real. This isn't an act. How do you know? Aisha challenged. She was the oldest and had been hurt the most. Trust didn't come easily. Because I called Michael Jordan in the middle of the night with an impossible story, and he answered. He didn't just answer the phone, he answered the call. He flew to North Carolina. He fought for us. He brought us here. Isaiah's voice was passionate now. He didn't have to do any of that. He could have hung up, ignored us, protected himself, but he didn't. But adoption, Aisha said. That's forever. What if we can't be what they want? What if we're too broken? Isaiah looked at her. Then we'll be broken together. Here, as a family. Isn't that better than being broken alone in the system? Aisha's tough exterior cracked. Tears welled in her eyes. I'm scared. I'm scared to hope. Every time I've hoped before, it got crushed. Keisha moved to sit beside her. I'm scared too. But maybe being brave means hoping anyway. They talked for over an hour, about fears and dreams, about the past and the future, about what family meant after everything they'd been through. Finally, they reached a decision. Isaiah opened the door and called down, Mr. Michael, can you come up? Michael climbed the stairs, his heart pounding. This moment would determine 7 lives, 7 futures. He entered the room where all 7 children sat waiting. We've talked, Isaiah said. He looked at the others, who all nodded. And we want to say yes, all of us. We want to stay. We want to be Jordans. Relief and joy flooded through Michael. But Isaiah held up his hand. But we need to know something first. We need to understand what you're getting into. We're not easy. We have nightmares. We have trauma. We're going to mess up. We're going to need a lot of help. Isaiah's voice cracked. We're not perfect kids from a catalog. We're damaged. Are you sure you want us? Michael knelt down so he was at eye level with all 7. Let me tell you what I see when I look at you 7. I see survivors. I see fighters. I see kids who protected each other when the world tried to break them. I see Isaiah, who taught himself advanced technology to save his friends. I see Aisha, who speaks up even when it's scary. I see Marcus, who still believes in goodness despite everything. I see all of you, and I see strength. He paused. You're not damaged, you're resilient. And yes, there will be hard days. Yes, we'll mess up. All of us. But that's what families do. They mess up together and figure it out together and love each other anyway. Michael's voice grew thick with emotion. So yes, I'm sure. I want you. All 7 of you. Not despite your past, but including it. Your past made you who you are. And who you are is exactly who I want in my family. Marcus started crying. Then Keisha. Then all 7 children were crying and hugging Michael and each other. Yvette and Michael's other children came upstairs and joined the group hug. For several minutes, they all just held each other, crying and laughing and celebrating. When they finally pulled apart, Isaiah wiped his eyes and smiled. A real, full smile that transformed his serious face. So what happens now? He asked. Now, Michael said. We start the paperwork. It'll take time. There will be court dates and evaluations and bureaucracy. But at the end of it, you'll officially be Jordan's. Can I ask you something? Marcus said, looking up at Michael with his big eyes. When the adoption is done, can I call you Dad? Michael felt tears sting his eyes. You can call me whatever feels right. If Dad feels right, then yes. Absolutely yes. Marcus threw his arms around Michael's waist. Okay, Dad. And just like that, Michael Jordan became a father to 7 more children. The process wouldn't be easy. The legal adoption would take months. The healing would take years. But in that moment, in a bedroom in Chicago, 10 children and 2 adults became something more than a collection of people living in the same house. They became a family, not because of biology or obligation, but because of choice, because of courage, because of love. Isaiah looked at Michael, the man who'd answered an impossible phone call and changed everything. Thank you, Isaiah said simply, for hearing me, for believing me, for fighting for us. Thank you, Michael replied, for reminding me what really matters, for showing me what real courage looks like, for letting me be part of your story. Aisha, who'd been silent since saying yes, finally spoke. My friend Maya, the one who disappeared from Riverside, they found her last week. She's safe now. Going to live with her aunt in California. I heard, Michael said. That's wonderful news. It's because of us. Because Isaiah called you. Because you came. You saved more than just 7 kids. You saved all of them. Aisha's hard exterior softened. That matters. What you did matters. What we did, Michael corrected. This was teamwork, Isaiah's courage, all of you protecting each other. Marcus, JT, Evelyn, Sheriff Rodriguez. A lot of people came together to make this happen. But you answered the phone, Isaiah said. That's where it started. One person answering the call. Later that night, after all the children were finally asleep, Michael stood in his study looking at his phone. The same phone that had rung at 11:47 p.m. 3 months ago with an impossible call from an untraceable number. He thought about how easily he could have ignored it, how close he'd come to hanging up, how one small decision had transformed everything. Yvette came in and wrapped her arms around him from behind. You okay? Better than okay. Scared, excited, overwhelmed, but okay. We're going to be parents to 10 children. I know, that's insane. Completely insane, Yvette agreed. Also completely right. Michael turned to face her. Thank you for saying yes, for opening our home, for having a bigger heart than I deserve. We're partners, in everything. She kissed him gently. Those 7 kids needed us, but I think maybe we needed them too. They reminded us what's important. Michael thought about that, about how fame and success and wealth had insulated him from the world's pain, about how comfortable he'd become, about how Isaiah's desperate phone call had shattered that comfort and replaced it with something better. Purpose, connection, Love that cost something? You're right, he said. I did need them. I just didn't know it until a 12-year-old kid had the courage to call me at midnight and ask for help. They stood together in the quiet study, listening to the sounds of 10 children sleeping peacefully in their home. And Michael Jordan, who'd won championships and broken records and achieved everything basketball could offer, realized that this messy, complicated, beautiful family was his greatest victory yet. Not because he'd saved 7 children, but because they'd saved him too. 6 months later, the adoption hearing was scheduled for a warm April morning. Michael woke early, unable to sleep. Today, 7 children would officially become Jordan's. The paperwork would be signed. The judge would grant the final decree, and everything would be permanent. He walked through the quiet house, checking on each child. They were all still asleep, exhausted from the excitement of the night before. Even Isaiah, who usually woke at the slightest sound, was sleeping peacefully. Michael paused at each doorway, watching them breathe. These 7 souls who'd come into his life through an impossible phone call. These survivors who'd taught him more about courage than any championship ever had. In the kitchen, he made coffee and sat at the table where they all ate breakfast together every morning. The table had expanded twice to fit everyone. It was scratched and worn now, marked by 6 months of family meals and homework sessions and late-night conversations. Yvette found him there an hour later, staring into his coffee cup. "Second thoughts?" she asked gently, sitting beside him. "No, just thinking about how different life was 6 months ago. How quiet. How simple." He looked at her. "I don't miss it." "Me neither. Though I do miss sleeping past 6 a.m. Michael laughed. Marcus has an internal alarm clock, every morning at 5:45, like clockwork. Emma sings in the shower, loudly. Diego leaves his basketball shoes everywhere. Aisha argues about everything. They smiled at each other, cataloging the beautiful chaos that had become their life. "Are you nervous?" Yvette asked. "About the hearing?" "A little. What if something goes wrong? What if the judge sees some technicality we missed? Evelyn's been over everything 100 times. It's going to be fine." Michael nodded, but the anxiety remained. He'd faced pressure before, game-winning shots with seconds left, championships on the line. But this felt different, more important. 7 lives hung in the balance. By 8 a.m., the house was awake and buzzing with energy. The children dressed in the new clothes Yvette had bought for the occasion. Nothing too formal, just nice outfits that made them feel special. Isaiah came downstairs wearing slacks and a button-down shirt. He looked older somehow, more confident. The frightened 12-year-old who'd made those desperate phone calls had grown into a young man who was learning to trust again. "You look good," Michael told him. "I look nervous," Isaiah corrected. "What if the judge asks me questions? What if I say something wrong?" "There's no wrong answer. Just tell the truth, that's all anyone wants." Marcus appeared next, struggling with his tie. "Dad, can you help me?" The word still caught Michael off guard sometimes. "Dad. Not Mr. Michael anymore, just Dad." He knelt down and adjusted Marcus's tie. "There, perfect. Are we really going to be Jordans today? For real?" "For real. Forever." Marcus grinned, then threw his arms around Michael's neck. "I love you, Dad." Michael's throat tightened. "I love you too, buddy." One by one, the other children came down. Keisha, in a blue dress. The twins in matching outfits they'd insisted on. Diego, looking uncomfortable in anything that wasn't athletic wear. Aisha with her hair braided beautifully, though her expression was still guarded. Michael's own 3 children joined them, dressed and ready to support their soon-to-be official siblings. "Everyone ready?" Yvette asked, checking her watch. "We need to leave in 10 minutes." "I need to say something first," Isaiah announced, standing in the middle of the living room. Everyone stopped and looked at him. 6 months ago, I made a phone call I shouldn't have been able to make, to a man I'd never met. I was terrified. I didn't know if it would work. I didn't know if anyone would believe me. Isaiah's voice was steady, mature beyond his 14 years now. But Mr. Jordan, Dad, answered. Not just the phone, the call, the need, the desperation. He looked at Michael. You saved 7 lives that night. But you did more than that. You showed us what family really means. Not biology, not obligation, but choice. You chose us. Every day you keep choosing us. Even when we have nightmares, even when we mess up, even when we're difficult. Isaiah's voice cracked slightly. I just wanted to say thank you. Before we go to court, before it becomes official, thank you for being the person I hoped you'd be when I called you at midnight. Thank you for not hanging up. The room was silent. Even Marcus, usually bursting with energy, stood still. Michael crossed to Isaiah and pulled him into a hug. Thank you for having the courage to call. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for letting me be your dad. Aisha spoke up, her tough exterior finally crumbling. I didn't think I could trust anyone again. But you've been patient with me. Even when I pushed back. Even when I tested you to see if you'd give up on me. Tears streamed down her face. You never did. So thank you. From all of us. The 7 children and Michael's 3 kids all came together in a group hug. Yvette joined them, and they stood there in the living room, holding each other, crying and laughing. Okay, Yvette finally said, wiping her eyes. We're going to be late, and we need to not show up looking like we've been crying. Too late, Jasmine said, pointing at everyone's red eyes. They piled into 2 SUVs and drove to the courthouse. The same courthouse where Judge Miranda Foster had granted the emergency custody order 6 months ago. The media had gotten wind of the adoption hearing. Cameras and reporters lined the courthouse steps. Michael had tried to keep it private, but word had leaked out. Mr. Jordan, can we get a statement? Michael, how do the children feel about the adoption? Is this a publicity stunt? Marcus grabbed Michael's hand, frightened by the crowd. Michael squeezed back reassuringly and kept walking. Security helped them push through. Inside, the courthouse was quieter. Evelyn met them in the hallway, looking professional and confident. Everyone ready? She asked. 7 children nodded, though their nervousness showed. Remember, Judge Foster is kind. She's on your side. Just be honest if she asks you anything. They entered the courtroom. It was smaller than Michael expected. Wooden benches, a judge's bench at the front, an American flag in the corner. Judge Foster sat behind her bench, reviewing papers. She looked up when they entered and smiled warmly. Good morning, everyone. Please come in, sit down. They filed into the front rows. Michael and Yvette sat with the 7 children between them. Michael's own kids sat right behind. Also present were Sheriff Rodriguez, who'd become a friend over the past months, Marcus Webb and JT, who'd helped rescue the children, and Dr. Chen, the therapist who'd been working with all 7 kids. Judge Foster began. We're here today for the adoption petition of Isaiah Bennett, Marcus Williams, Keisha Thompson, Emma Martinez, Evan Martinez, Diego Santos, and Aisha Freeman by Michael and Yvette Jordan. She looked at the 7 children. I've reviewed all the reports, from therapists, social workers, teachers, and family counselors. Everyone agrees that you 7 have thrived in the Jordan home. You're doing well in school. You're healing from your trauma. You've integrated into the family. Judge Foster paused. But before I sign these papers, I want to hear from you. Not from the adults. From you 7. This is your life. Your future. You deserve a voice. She looked at Isaiah first. Isaiah, you're the oldest. Why do you want the Jordans to adopt you? Isaiah stood up, his voice clear. Because they've shown me what family means. Not just saying it, living it. Every day. Through good times and hard times. They didn't give up when I had nightmares. They didn't send me away when I struggled. They just kept showing up. That's what parents do. That's what I want. Judge Foster nodded. Aisha. Aisha stood. Her usual defensive posture softened. I didn't trust them at first. I tested them constantly, waiting for them to fail. But they didn't. They were patient. They were consistent. They loved me even when I wasn't lovable. That's something I've never had before. And now that I have it, I don't want to lose it. One by one, each child spoke. Keisha talked about feeling safe for the first time in years. The twins talked about having a real home where they belonged. Diego talked about learning that adults could be trusted. Little Marcus simply said, "They're my family, I love them." When they finished, Judge Foster wiped her eyes. "Well, that's about the most compelling testimony I've ever heard." She looked at Michael and Yvette. "And you two? Are you absolutely certain? 7 children is a lot. Your lives will never be simple again." Michael stood. "Your Honor, 6 months ago I got a phone call that changed everything. A scared boy asked for help and I answered. I thought I was saving him. But the truth is, he saved me. All 7 of them did." He looked at the children. "They reminded me what matters. Not championships or fame or wealth, but people, connection, love that costs something. I'm more certain about this adoption than I've been about anything in my life." Yvette stood beside him. "These 7 children came into our lives when we didn't know we needed them. But they completed our family in ways we never imagined. They've taught our own children about resilience and compassion. They've taught us about courage and hope. We don't want temporary. We want forever." Judge Foster smiled. "Then it's my honor to grant this petition." She signed the papers with a flourish. "As of this moment, Isaiah, Marcus, Keisha, Emma, Evan, Diego, and Aisha are legally and permanently members of the Jordan family. Congratulations." The courtroom erupted in applause. The children jumped up, hugging each other and their new parents. Dr. Chen was crying. Sheriff Rodriguez grinned. Even the court reporter smiled. Judge Foster banged her gavel good-naturedly. "Order! I'm not done yet." Everyone settled down, though the joy remained. "I want to say something," Judge Foster continued. "In my 30 years on the bench, I've seen a lot of adoption cases. But this one is special. Not because of who you are, Mr. Jordan, but because of what this represents." She looked at the 7 children. "You 7 showed incredible courage. You refused to be victims. You fought for each other. You survived. And when one of you reached out for help, you reached out to someone who you believed would listen." She turned to Michael. "And you, Mr. Jordan, you did something that everyone should do but few actually manage. You answered the call. Not the easy call. Not the convenient call. The hard call. The call that disrupted your life and demanded everything from you. And look what happened." Judge Foster gestured at the family. 7 children are safe. An entire trafficking network was dismantled. Multiple families were reunited with missing children, and a new family was formed. All because one person chose to answer the phone at midnight. She smiled. "So, congratulations to the Jordan family, all of you. May you have many happy years together." Outside the courthouse, the media mob was waiting. Michael had initially wanted to avoid them, but Isaiah stopped him. "Dad, can we talk to them? Just for a minute? There are other kids out there like we were, scared, alone, thinking no one will help. Maybe if they hear our story, they'll find courage too." Michael looked at Yvette, who nodded. They stood on the courthouse steps, the Jordan family of 13. Michael spoke briefly about the adoption, about the importance of foster care reform, about listening when children ask for help. Then he stepped back and let Isaiah speak. "My name is Isaiah Jordan," Isaiah said, his voice carrying across the crowd. 6 months ago, I was a scared kid in a terrible situation. I didn't think anyone would believe me. I didn't think anyone cared about foster kids like me and my friends." He paused. "But I was wrong. When I reached out, someone answered. Someone believed me. Someone fought for us. And that changed everything." Isaiah looked directly at the cameras. "If you're a kid in trouble, don't give up. Find someone to tell. Keep trying until someone listens. You deserve to be safe. You deserve to be loved. You deserve a family." He turned to Michael. "And if you're an adult with the power to help, answer the call. Even when it's hard, even when it's inconvenient, even when it doesn't make sense. Because you might save a life. You might change everything." The reporters were silent, moved by this young man's words. As they walked to their cars, Marcus tugged on Michael's sleeve. "Dad, are we going to celebrate?" "Absolutely. What do you want to do?" "Ice cream," Marcus declared. "And basketball. And a movie. Everything." Michael laughed. Everything it is. They went to an ice cream shop first. All 13 of them crowded around a table, eating sundaes and laughing. Other customers recognized Michael and smiled, but mostly people just saw what they were, a large, happy family celebrating something special. Back home that evening, after the excitement had faded and the younger children were in bed, Michael found Isaiah on the back porch. He was looking up at the stars, lost in thought. "You okay?" Michael asked, sitting beside him. "Yeah, just thinking." Isaiah was quiet for a moment. "Do you ever wonder about that phone call? How it was possible? How I managed to reach you when technically I shouldn't have been able to?" Michael had wondered. He'd thought about it many times over the past 6 months. The untraceable call, the impossible technology, the perfect timing. "I have a theory," Michael said. "Want to hear it?" Isaiah nodded. "I think sometimes the universe finds a way to connect people who need each other. Maybe it was your intelligence and determination. Maybe it was technology you figured out. Maybe it was something else, something we can't explain." Michael looked at the stars. "But whatever it was, I'm grateful for it." "Me too," Isaiah smiled. "My mom used to say that when you need help, the universe sends someone. You just have to be brave enough to ask." "Your mom sounds like she was very wise." "She was." Isaiah's voice was soft. "I wish she could see this. See me with a family. See me happy and safe." "Maybe she can," Michael said. "Maybe she's watching right now, proud of the brave, smart, incredible son she raised." Isaiah wiped his eyes. "Do you think the other kids will be okay? The ones who are still out there in bad situations?" "I think some of them will find their way to safety because you spoke up today. Because you showed them it's possible." Michael put his arm around Isaiah's shoulders. "You did more than save yourself. You started something bigger." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Inside the house, Yvette was checking on the children one last time. She paused at each room, looking at the sleeping faces of their expanded family. 10 children, some biological, some chosen. All precious, all loved. In Marcus's room, she found a drawing he'd made taped to the wall. It showed stick figures, 13 of them, holding hands. Above them, in careful letters, Marcus had written, "My forever family." Yvette smiled through tears. This was what mattered. Not fame or wealth or accomplishments, but this, love, family, connection. She joined Michael and Isaiah on the porch. "Everyone's asleep," she reported. "Finally." "It's been a big day," Michael said. "The biggest," Isaiah agreed. He stood up, suddenly looking tired. "I think I'll go to bed too." "Good night, Mom." "Good night, Dad." The words were so natural now. Mom and Dad? Not Mr. Michael and Miss Yvette, just parents. Real parents. After Isaiah went inside, Michael and Yvette sat together in the darkness. "We did it," Yvette said. "We actually did it." "We did." Michael took her hand. 10 kids. We're officially crazy. Best kind of crazy. They sat quietly, listening to the sounds of their neighborhood. Dogs barking, cars passing, the ordinary sounds of an ordinary night. Except nothing about their lives was ordinary anymore. And Michael wouldn't have it any other way. Inside, his phone sat on the kitchen counter. The same phone that had rung at 11:47 p.m. 6 months ago, with an impossible call from an untraceable number. It was silent now. No mysterious calls, no desperate pleas. Just a normal phone in a normal house. But Michael would never forget that moment. That choice. That split second when he decided to answer instead of ignore. One call had changed 13 lives. 7 children had found a home. One man had found his purpose. And a family had been born from courage, hope, and the simple act of answering when someone needed help. As Michael and Yvette finally went inside and locked up for the night, they passed the living room where a photo now hung on the wall. Judge Foster had arranged for a courthouse photographer to take it after the adoption was finalized. 13 people, different ages, different backgrounds, different stories. But one family, the Jordan family. Michael Jordan stood at the back of a crowded auditorium, watching from the shadows. On stage, a 16-year-old Isaiah stood behind a podium, addressing an audience of foster care advocates, social workers, and lawmakers. "The system failed me 3 times before I found safety," Isaiah was saying, his voice strong and clear. "I called the police. I told teachers. I reported abuse. But no one believed a foster kid with behavioral problems. That's what they called me. Troubled. Difficult. A liar." The audience was silent, listening intently. "So I stopped trusting the system. I learned that if I wanted to survive, I had to save myself. I taught myself computer programming. I learned about encryption and phone systems. And on a desperate night 2 years ago, I made an impossible phone call to a man I'd never met." Isaiah paused, his eyes finding Michael in the back of the room. "That man answered. He believed me. And he saved 7 lives that night. But more importantly, he showed me that some adults do care. Some people do listen. Some promises are kept." Michael felt his throat tighten. He'd heard Isaiah speak publicly several times now, but it never got easier. The pride mixed with pain. Pride in who Isaiah had become. Pain thinking about what he'd endured. "Today, I'm here to talk about the Foster Care Technology Initiative," Isaiah continued. "A program my dad and I developed to give foster children secure communication tools. Every child in care will receive a phone with encrypted emergency features. They'll have direct access to trained advocates who will actually listen. They'll have a voice that can't be silenced." Applause filled the auditorium. Michael smiled. Isaiah had turned his trauma into purpose. The same technology he'd used to save himself, he was now giving to thousands of other children. After the speech, Michael waited as Isaiah was surrounded by reporters and advocates. Finally, the crowd thinned, and Isaiah made his way over. "You were great," Michael said, pulling his son into a hug. "I was nervous the whole time." "Couldn't tell. You spoke like a professional." Isaiah grinned. "Well, I've had 2 years of practice being a Jordan. You guys don't do anything halfway." They walked out of the auditorium together. Outside, the rest of the family waited in 2 SUVs. Yvette waved from the driver's seat of the first vehicle. "How'd it go?" she called. "He killed it," Michael reported. 9-year-old Marcus pressed his face against the window. "Did you tell them about the app I helped design?" Isaiah laughed. "I mentioned that my little brother is a coding genius, yes." Marcus beamed. In 2 years, he'd gone from a traumatized 7-year-old to a confident kid obsessed with technology. Isaiah had been teaching him programming, and Marcus had a natural talent for it. They drove home through Chicago traffic. Home was a new, larger house now. The old one had simply run out of room. This house had enough bedrooms for everyone, a massive kitchen for family dinners, and a full-size basketball court out back. At dinner that night, all 13 family members crowded around the enormous dining table. It was chaos, conversations overlapping, food being passed, someone always needing something. Michael loved every second of it. Keisha was telling Yvette about her choir performance next week. The twins were arguing about a video game. Diego was showing Jeffrey his latest basketball moves. Aisha was helping Jasmine with algebra homework. And Marcus was explaining to anyone who would listen how the new foster care app worked. "So, if a kid is in danger," Marcus said enthusiastically, "they just press this button and it sends an alert to 3 different agencies at once. No one can ignore it or say they didn't get the message." "That's brilliant," Yvette said. "You boys have created something really special." Isaiah shook his head. "Marcus did most of the work on the interface. I just helped with the encryption." "You're both brilliant," Michael interjected, "and I'm proud of both of you." After dinner, while Yvette and the older kids cleaned up, Michael went to his study. He had emails to answer about the foundation, the Second Chance Foundation that had grown far beyond what he'd imagined 2 years ago. What started as a simple idea to help the 7 children had expanded into a nationwide organization. They provided resources for foster children, funded better oversight of care facilities, and offered support for families willing to adopt older kids or sibling groups. The foundation had helped reunite 4 of the 8 missing children from Riverside with biological family members. The other 4 had been placed in carefully vetted adoptive homes. All 12 children were safe, healing, and moving forward with their lives. Mrs. Carmichael was serving 15 years in federal prison. 17 others involved in the trafficking network had been convicted. The New Beginnings Initiative, the front organization, had been completely dismantled. A knock on the study door interrupted Michael's thoughts. Aisha poked her head in. "Dad, can I talk to you?" "Always, come in." Aisha was 14 now, taller, more confident. Therapy had helped her work through years of trauma, though she still had moments of struggle. They all did. "I got an email today," she said, sitting down. "From Maya." Michael sat up straighter. Maya was Aisha's friend from Riverside, one of the 8 who'd been trafficked before they could stop Mrs. Carmichael. "How is she?" "Good. Really good, actually. She's living with her aunt in California. She's in therapy. She's on the track team at her school." Aisha smiled. "She said she wanted to thank you for saving us. She said if Isaiah hadn't called you, if you hadn't exposed Riverside, she might never have been found. That was all Isaiah's doing." "No," Aisha said firmly. "It was yours too. Isaiah made the call, but you answered. That's what everyone forgets. He could have called 100 people who would have hung up or ignored him, but he called you, and you answered." Michael thought about that night 2 years ago. How close he'd come to ignoring the call. How easily he could have dismissed it as a prank. "I'm glad I answered," he said simply. "Me too." Aisha hesitated. "Can I tell you something? Something I've never told anyone?" "Of course." "The night before you came to Riverside, I was ready to give up. I'd been fighting for so long, trying to protect the younger kids, trying to figure out a way to escape, but I was exhausted. I thought maybe it would be easier to just stop fighting." Michael's chest tightened. "Aisha, but then Isaiah told us he'd made contact with you, that Michael Jordan was actually responding to his messages. And I thought, if this incredible person believes us, if he's willing to help, then maybe we're worth saving after all." Tears filled Aisha's eyes. "You gave me hope when I had none left. So thank you for answering, for fighting for us, for being our dad." Michael pulled her into a hug. "Thank you for holding on, for being strong enough to survive, for giving me the chance to be your father." They sat together for a few minutes, in the comfortable silence that had developed between them, over 2 years of trust building. Finally, Aisha pulled back and wiped her eyes. "Okay, enough crying. I have homework." "And Mom said you promised to help Diego with his history project." Michael laughed. "I did promise that. Tell him I'll be there in 5 minutes." After Aisha left, Michael sat alone in his study. On his desk was a framed newspaper clipping, the same one Isaiah had shown him that first day at Riverside. The article from 1993 about his father's funeral, with the caption, "Jordan says he'll honor father by never giving up." Beside it was a new photo, the Jordan family of 13 on adoption day, standing on the courthouse steps, smiling and whole. His father would have been proud, Michael thought. James Jordan had always believed in helping others, in using whatever advantages you had to lift people up. He'd worked 3 jobs to support his family. He'd taught Michael that success meant nothing if you didn't use it to help others. "I hope I'm doing this right, Dad," Michael whispered to the photo. "I hope you're proud." His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus Webb. "Just heard Isaiah's speech made national news. That kid is going to change the world. You did good, MJ." Michael smiled and typed back, "He was already changing the world. I just gave him a platform." Over the next hour, Michael helped Diego with his history project, reviewed Keisha's essay about the civil rights movement, and played a quick game of chess with Evan, who was beating him more often than not these days. At bedtime, Michael made his rounds. He'd started this ritual 2 years ago and never stopped. Every night, he checked on each child, said goodnight, reminded them they were loved. In the girls' room, Keisha was already asleep, but Aisha was reading by her bedside lamp. "Lights out soon," Michael said gently. "Just finishing this chapter. 5 more minutes, then sleep." In the boys' room, Diego was listening to music on his headphones. Isaiah was at his desk, still working on code for the foster care app. "Isaiah, it's almost 11. You need rest." "Just fixing one more bug." The bug will still be there tomorrow. Sleep now. Isaiah sighed but saved his work. You're a tyrant, you know that? I'm a dad. It's in the job description. In the younger kids' room, Marcus, Emma, and Evan were all asleep. Michael adjusted Marcus's blanket, which had been kicked off. He kissed each of their foreheads gently. Finally, he stopped at his biological children's rooms. Jeffrey was studying for a test. Jasmine was writing in her journal. Both looked up and smiled when Michael appeared. "Good night, Dad," they said in near unison. "Good night. Love you both." "Love you too." Back in his bedroom, Yvette was already in bed, reading a book. "Everyone tucked in?" she asked. "Everyone." Diego tried to stay up playing music. Isaiah was coding. Aisha was reading. The usual. Yvette set her book aside. "I got a call today from the foundation. They want us to speak at a national conference about foster care reform. Both of us." Michael groaned. "More public speaking? You're Michael Jordan. You've spoken to millions of people. That was about basketball. This is different. This is personal. That's exactly why we need to do it. Because it is personal. Because we've lived it. Because other families need to know that adopting older kids or sibling groups is possible." Michael knew she was right. Over the past 2 years, they'd become advocates, not because they wanted attention, but because their story could help others. If sharing their experience encouraged even one family to open their home, it was worth it. "Okay," he agreed. "We'll do it. Together." Yvette smiled and kissed him. Together, like everything else. As Michael turned off the lights and settled into bed, he thought about how much had changed in 2 years. His carefully controlled private life had been completely transformed. He'd gone from 3 children to 10. From a quiet home to constant chaos. From comfortable distance to deep involvement in foster care reform. And he wouldn't change a single thing. His phone sat on the nightstand, the same phone that had received that impossible call 2 years ago. It was silent now. Just a normal phone on a normal night. But Michael would never forget that moment when it rang at 11:47 p.m., when a scared child's voice asked for help, when he made the choice to answer instead of ignore. That one choice had transformed 13 lives, had exposed a trafficking network, had led to the rescue of 12 children, had created a foundation that was now helping thousands, all because he answered the phone. "You awake?" Yvette whispered in the darkness. "Yeah, just thinking." About? About how Isaiah's phone call saved more than just 7 kids. It saved me too. I was going through the motions, successful but empty, famous but disconnected, comfortable but not fulfilled. And now? Now I have purpose, real purpose, not just legacy or fame or money, but actual meaning. I'm making a difference in a way that matters. Yvette took his hand. "That boy saw something in you. Something true. He saw past the fame to who you really are, and he was brave enough to call. And I was lucky enough to answer." They lay in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of their house, 10 children sleeping upstairs, all safe, all loved, all home. Michael thought about his father again, about the lessons James Jordan had taught him, about hard work and integrity and using your blessings to help others. "I think Dad would be proud," Michael said softly. "He would be," Yvette agreed. "So would Isaiah's mother, and Aisha's friend Maya's parents, and all the people who've been touched by what you did." "What we did?" Michael corrected. "None of this works without you. We make a good team, the best team." As Michael drifted off to sleep, he thought about impossible phone calls and untraceable connections, about how sometimes the universe puts you exactly where you need to be, if you're brave enough to answer when it calls. He thought about 7 children who'd survived the unthinkable and came out stronger, about families being reunited, about a system slowly changing because people refused to accept that things couldn't be better. And he thought about the simple truth that had become the foundation of his new life. Real courage isn't about never being scared. It's about being scared and acting anyway. It's about answering the call even when it costs you everything. It's about looking at a caller ID that says unknown and choosing to answer anyway. Because you never know whose life you might save. You never know whose story you might change. You never know when one moment of choice will transform everything. Michael Jordan had won 6 NBA championships. He'd broken records. He'd achieved legendary status. He'd built a business empire. But his greatest victory would always be that night 2 years ago when he answered an impossible phone call from a desperate child and said yes. So that's the incredible story of how Michael Jordan answered an impossible phone call and saved 7 lives. One moment of courage, one choice to help, and everything changed forever. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching this video from? Drop your country or city in the comments below. We love hearing from viewers all around the world. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button right now. It helps us spread more stories of kindness and courage to people who need to hear them. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss another inspiring story. Together, we can spread kindness across the world, one story at a time. There's another amazing story waiting for you right now. Just click on the video appearing on your screen. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes answering the call is all it takes to change someone's life forever.